It's Friday, October 13th, 2023. With our traditional shill segment where I will give you a web address, and that address is patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare, which is one place you can go to support the show. You can also go to the show homepage, which apparently is going to be changing. I saw a little thing that says, oh, this is a legacy webpage. The new one's going to come into effect. And boy, do I not like the look of it, at least the way it looks by default. So hopefully I can change it. But so for the moment, you can still go and find an array of rounded squares on the right side of the show homepage that will have a PayPal link at the top. It will have a book that will take you to Lando's Amazon author page. There will be a skull to take you to my link tree. And at the bottom, you will find our YouTube channel, where normally I don't promote it, but you will find, as of this show posting, the now updated 5 or 6 times because YouTube censored the fuck out of it video for the reviews of Assault on Precinct 13 and Escape from New York, which I will talk about what YouTube did to... Actually, I did it in a much softer fashion. YouTube fucking sucks. Let's just say that up front. I did all this work to make a really...
Don't sugarcoat it.
Did I send you the link to that video? I don't remember.
No, you didn't.
I will send it to you because I think I didn't know which version I had uploaded at that point because there were so many of them. But anyway, I had done this wonderful... For me, not wonderful for people who do it as
I
as
remember.
A profession.
Yeah.
But I did all this lined up stuff and I uploaded it, not even thinking about copyright strike stuff. And, it took a couple hours to get, and then it comes back and says, nope, nobody can ever see this because the license holder for Escape from New York has blocked it instantaneously because, YouTube sucks. So the Assault on Precinct 13 stuff is all fine because that's not the movie that people know. So it left all that alone, which is great because I wouldn't have had to want to redo all that. And honestly, when we talked about it, that was the movie we actually said people should really watch. Escape from New York, everybody has already seen. So, but all that stuff wiped out. So I had to go through and replace all the video with still shots, which took another 3 hours, which was fine. But it's just...
It doesn't sound fine.
Well, here, I said this on the second part where I talk about this. I'll say it again here, and this is my biggest problem with this, is the thing that's infuriating about it is if we sold things through our YouTube channel, I would understand it. Because then it would be making money off of the work of another artist, or really artists, because a movie is more than one person. I would understand that. If we were saying, hey, and now while you watch this review, buy our Escape from New York t-shirts where we rip off their poster art and sell our shirts and we make money off something we had nothing to do with.
I'm gonna make the legal argument to you, right?
Sure, go ahead.
Because people donate to the show, anybody, even $1, and your content has copywritten stuff, doesn't that legally count as some level of income?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
When they donate to the show, what they are supporting is the audio. The audio, they can't touch the audio because, the theme song, we credit it, and it's a fair use because we're commenting on it. We are not, and it's not in a quality. It's at 96 kilobits, which means you are not getting a reproduction. What you are getting is an inferior version, like a tape copy. I mean, it's not a tape copy, but it's close, right? So it does not count because donations are not selling something. That's somebody who chooses to donate optionally. You can listen for free. So we're not profiting. And let me tell you something. Even if people were donating twice what they were, we're not profiting off it. I guarantee you. So no, it doesn't matter. And the other thing is that the video is in a completely different avenue. What they were copyrighted, what they were blocking was not the audio. They didn't actually care about the theme song. They cared about the motion picture part of it. Because about 8 minutes or so because I was just playing clips of important parts of the movie to say, here's why this is a great part. Here's a great scene. Bang, play it. So that's what they were blocking. They don't care about the music. There's no money in music. What they want to do is they're saying, oh, you're showing the movie and we don't want you to show the movie. Here's the other part that bothers me. Number one, that there is no monetization on the channel. So that video makes no money. It's not even that I have it set, but it's not even set to monetize. It cannot monetize. So the other thing is, it's selling the movie. I'm doing these assholes a favor. On the off chance that there are 8 people in the world who haven't seen Escape from New York that would be so inclined, I would be ideally making them want to go buy it or rent it. So I'm selling it for them for free. Me and Doug really are selling it for them.
Yeah, but you're not dealing with human beings. You're dealing with an algorithm.
Well, that's what I mean about it. It's YouTube that sucks.
Do I think
that who owns that? Is it Studio Canal? Do I really think that Studio Canal would watch that? Here's another thing, by the way. Here's even another aspect of it. And this was not planned. We did not agree to this at all. Nothing. We don't swear through the whole thing. So you can't even say that, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you're saying you're promoting our movie, but this is filthy language. We wouldn't want the average. No. There is no foul language throughout the entire thing. I think I say the F word once, maybe one time, which, by the way, the clips of the movie say worse things than we do. So, again, it's garbage. So, why was I pointing that out? Oh, so I was... So unfortunately, the YouTube version that most people will see, the Assault on Precinct 13 stuff, all that video got left in because nobody cares, which is a travesty. And honestly, of the 2 movies, I'm happier that stuff got left because I think it's... Honestly, in watching the 2 movies again, I like the first one better. I've realized Escape from New York, I think because I've seen it so many times, it's become kind of... It's lost some of what it had when I was younger, whereas Assault on Precinct 13 is now the movie I prefer to watch. So of the 2, I think we spent more time talking about that movie. So I'm glad that stuff got left because that's the movie I think most people probably haven't seen. So if there's one movie out of the 2 I can sell people on, that's the one I want them to see. I still love Escape from New York. Don't get me wrong. It's a masterfully crafted film.
Fuck, just watch them both. How about that?
Well, that was our argument, is one is what becomes the other. One is the sketch work that then transforms into the other one. You can see it. I mean, there's constant... I will say this, though. The one thing that's interesting that they didn't block is I was so happy that that I got it to line up, that I put a comparison set of images of the video of Snake fighting the wrestler and the guy in 13th Warrior fighting the redhead. And the shots line up so perfectly that it almost is like they were mimicking it. It just hit the way with the shield getting knocked out and then the way he comes around and hits the guy from the back. I mean, Snake doesn't decapitate the wrestler, but everything looks very the same, like almost like it's a reference.
That special effect was too expensive.
Well, yes, it was. Yeah. So at least they didn't touch that. So that video is still in there, which I'm very happy about because I had to really like microsecond move everything because I really wanted the swing of the arm to line up. That's what I wanted to emphasize was how much they lined up. And I really wanted like the hits to be right at the same time, and I think I got it right where I wanted it. So, yeah.
Well,
anyway, sorry, that was a very long preamble.
The short of it is that YouTube sucks.
YouTube sucks, but I'm still happy with the video because I got to make some visual gags. I did a really neat kind of ghost effect at one point on something. There's things that I did that I'm still happy with that luckily they didn't touch. But the larger point of, and I'm sure someone will point out, well, you can appeal it. Yeah, but it'll take 2 months. And I don't want people to have to wait 2 months to see it. I want people to see this thing right away because I'm really happy with it's 3 hours of celebrating John Carpenter. I don't want to wait.
So in short, YouTube sucks. But Joe really likes his video, and you can watch it on YouTube.
And you'll be able to watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. And like I said,
can't you do like a direct download off the site?
I did in the video say, if you want the full one, send me an email and I will send it to you.
Oh, good.
Now, for this, I'll be curious because I haven't done the second set of movies yet, but I'm assuming they're going to get blocked top to bottom. With the first one,
at least you know now going in.
Right. So I'm still going to do my normal video with all the motion in it. I'm going to do the actual video clips, but I'm doing the stills first because that's the harder thing to do. It's just some scenes where they just work so much better in motion than they do with stills. There's some things where still images actually emphasize what we're talking about better.
Well, what if you change the images at all? Because I mean, I see that sometimes where they'll shrink the image, or they'll put a frame on the image, or they'll put something across the top of it.
I thought about that, but I'll tell you what my problem is.
If you put like an Ozone Nightmare ghost across the top of all the video.
You know what I thought of doing? I thought of putting the Laughing Man image over the faces.
Ooh.
And I might still do that.
Yeah. Everyone but the lead. Right?
Well, you have to have the lead too, or it won't matter.
Okay.
They'll key in on that.
Okay.
No, yeah. Let me tell you something. I realized at one point that not only was it, and it is the video because I had uploaded a version without audio at one point accidentally, and they still blocked it because all they saw was the imagery. So it proves they don't care about the audio.
Yeah.
They care about the imagery. It's stupid. But for all the other ones, so the direct download for the first one, honestly, everybody, you're going to get the most out of it without having to have the video part because Assault on Precinct 13 was preserved. Most people listening to this show already know Escape from New York. There's not much you're going to gain out of that one. I doubt many people listening to this have not seen that film, and probably multiple times. Now, the other ones, well, the middle two, we'll see. So the direct download might be one I expect more people to say, hey, yeah, can you send me that? But the first one, I assume most of everybody who's listening has seen Escape from New York. So the still images will probably be fine for you. But I did put, a thing in there. Just email the show if you want, and I will send it to you. So anyway, that's my thing. So I will say, unlike most of our YouTube content, which is not necessarily my finest editing efforts, if there's any at all, that one I would say go listen or go watch because I did put some work into it, and I think people would enjoy it. So, and I got to repurpose a theater intermission scene, which is the grooviest, coolest 60s Go Baby Go intermission thing I've ever seen in my life. And it didn't block that, so that one is there, and you can watch that, and it's great. For one of your favorite soft drinks that you don't get to drink anymore, Dr. Pepper.
Oh, Dr. Pepper? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so does the devil. What can you do? Yeah. It's basically just battery acid, but it tastes great.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that went on for way too long.
No, it's fine. That's what we're here for. All right, this is culture therapy, right?
Yeah, I think that's the end of the show segment. Yeah, that's it. So.
Well, oddly for me, I actually have quite a bit of random things to bring into the mix. Normally I come with very little, which I know seems strange because I can go on about a lot about very little, but I actually have a lot, which honestly means since I have a lot, I'll probably go on very little. But anyway, so first article I read this morning, didn't even get out of bed. Saw the headline on Science Alert about, and I'll send the link to you so you can see this, on Science Alert about common plastic additive linked to autism and ADHD. Right? Now most people's knee-jerk reaction to a title like that, if I say common plastic additive linked to autism and ADHD, scientists discover, what is your like knee-jerk reaction to what that title might mean?
Well, okay. You don't forget, I'm not a normal person because my first reaction is no shit. Who didn't know that there was probably a link between something that's all over the place and we know is harmful and harmful effects?
So, do you remember our good friend BPA?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's BPA, which stands for where is it?
It's like biphosphate acetone.
Yeah. Bisphenol A. Yeah. It's a common plastic additive. It was in Nalgene bottles.
Bisphenol A, an industrial chemical used to make certain
this stuff.
An industrial chemical. It's an industrial chemical.
This stuff has been in everything.
Camel.
I know. Yeah, industrial camel. Yeah. I wonder what that would look like.
Like BPA.
So BPA has been in like everything since the 50s. It's in cans. It's in Nalgene bottles. I was trying to explain to my wife the other day that Nalgene was actually like a lab equipment company. That the whole like outdoor water bottle thing was like a side gig for them. Because like they do lab equipment. I have notebooks. If you ever want to see a really cool notebook, get a Nalgene plastic notebook. It's a paper that's been mixed with plastic that is water resistant. Like you can literally kind of like if you have a waterproof pen, you could write on it like in the shower. It's fucking awesome. I love that. If you also want records to last for goddamn ever, and it's a spiral notebook. Spiral notebooks usually fall apart.
Man, I am pretty sure that when I worked at Brookstone, we sold some overpriced version of that. I'm 99%
Man,
sure
I only discovered it because at one point I was looking for something that was Nalgene based, but something else, and I discovered they did notebooks, and I was just so curious to be like, well, what the fuck does that look like? And it turns out it's pretty fucking awesome. But anyway, it's a terrible opener to this because this article was all about how BPA is still bad. I mean, that's the short of it. Hey guys, BPA still bad. Now, our friend BPA.
Well, by the way, not to mention before you get into this, that in the first paragraph, the last 5 words, basically, it's number of kids being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and as new study points to the common plastic additive BPA as a potential reason why, which those 2 words could be applied to.
Oh yeah, no, this is a correlation, and that's why I wanted to bring this article.
Correlation and not causation.
Exactly, this is a correlation article. What these people have discovered is that children with ADHD, children with autism, could not clear. This is what they're saying. They could not clear BPA and another similar compound called, just DEHP, with as much efficiency as other kids, potentially leading to longer exposure to their toxic effects. Now, the problem with BPA is that BPA is a hormone disruptor, right? So, if my mother spent years with BPA, but she didn't encounter it till she was much older. Right? So it didn't affect her as much as it might affect others. Whereas when you have young children who are encountering it, and they encounter quite a lot of it, it can mess with your body. And if you're receptive, I mean, that's the other thing too, is like not everyone's receptive. Why does not every child have autism? It's because not everyone's receptive. It's the same way that some people smoke cigarettes their entire lives and never get lung cancer. Some people smoke like, a cigarette once a week and they get lung cancer. Some people are more receptive than others. It's the luck of the draw in your DNA. But BPA before this, we knew was a hormone disruptor. We know that it messes with kids' hormones, and it's one of these weird things that there is a... I'll get there in a second. There is a weird argument that part of the reason why there is so much trans activity in the present day is because of the amount of BPA that was in basically everything. And it's a tough thing to study. It's not very easy to get funding for that because I was talking to my wife about this, and I said to her, I was like, imagine if I told you that the natural state of being for men and women was to not find each other attractive. If women stuck to women and men stuck to men, and we only got together now and then to procreate, and then we wanted nothing to do with each other, right? And then because of a chemical found in glass, it messed with your hormones and made you really dig men. right? And it's this chemical in glass that changed you at a important time in your life, so that now you like men instead of the natural course, which is liking women, right? Well, how does that make you feel about yourself as a person? About your identity? Like, Joe, if I told you that you were supposed to like men, and that this chemical in glass may have been a cause, not, I say may, have been a cause that changed you, would that kind of piss you off on like so many levels?
That if I found out that there was a chemical that made me how I feel anyway?
Yeah. No, that made you how you feel. And that you may have felt differently if you'd never encountered it.
I thought I always felt this way, but the chemical might be the reason why.
Yes. I mean, you are what you are now,
you know
but the chemical...
No, it wouldn't bother me.
It wouldn't. Okay. See...
No, and the only reason again, I'm not normal. You know, people get all wound up about weird things.
So people get really wound up.
I'll tell you, here's where it would bother me.
Yeah.
If I had been in therapy for 30 years...
Oh, and if it was
because I was compelled to hit myself in the balls with a hammer every hour. Okay. And they couldn't work out why. And then somebody came out and said, oh, yeah, it's because your mom used a glass bottle to give you formula when you were younger, and they knew about it all along. So, then I'd be on the lawsuit path, because I'd be like, this is the reason my balls are flat. You fucking assholes.
BPA is a hormone disruptor, and there have been theories in the past that part of the reason there are a lot more trans kids today than there were when I was a kid, right? I'm not saying there were none. I'm just saying there's a lot more now. Listen, there was still autism when I was a kid. There's a lot more of it now, right? And you kind of sit there going, well, what's the difference? Why is there so many? And it's like, well, it could be environmental differences. I personally have always thought that homosexuality is nature's way of basically saying there's too many of you.
Well, like, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do we know that there are more?
Let me finish that statement so people don't think that I'm being like hateful. What I mean is, I think that nature, when it feels like there's too many of an animal, the environment, this is like kind of like gets into the Gaia theory, kind of steps in and goes, okay,
sure.
You two, y'all have fucked enough. Now you need to settle down and stick with your own, right? And then it's like, okay, because women can't get women pregnant, men can't get men pregnant, we can fuck all we want and not overpopulate the planet. I honestly think that homosexuality on some level, outside of good pregnancy, what do you call it, birth control for women.
I was going to say prophylactic use.
Yeah, prophylactics and good birth control for women is the way of the future. And since the Republican Party doesn't want us to have prophylactics, maybe homosexuality is the only thing that's going to float their boat, which is very funny in itself. That is not me saying, of course, that homosexuality is bad in any way, shape, or form. I'm just always trying to find out the why of things, Sure. And I ask these questions of myself as well. We've talked about this many times, this idea that, why do I like ass? I love the behind of women. I do. I cannot in any way, shape, or form act like that is not something that I like quite a bit. But I've said before, I don't know what the hell you do with it. Because it's beautiful to look at. I love to grab it. But otherwise, it's not the thing you don't fuck ass cheeks. Right? But I see them and they flare that in my mind. It's the same with people who have a foot fetish. Right? You're not technically going to fuck the feet. I mean, I suppose you can get jerked off by feet, right? But the foot is the turn on that leads to something else. Thinking about the feet. Having feet in your presence. Doing things with them. But it all goes back to this idea of like what gets you there? Like what is the wiring? So reading the BPA article just set that all off because like I said, this particular article, which is very interesting nonetheless, that they have discovered something else that BPA may have fucked with. The reality is that BPA, which was in fucking everything for a while there, has fucked with a lot. And it begs the bigger question of what else is out there that's fucking with everything else? Because the thing is, all these corporations, they don't want to, no one wants to come forward and be like, hey, you know what? We found out this chemical that we were putting in your cornflakes. It might make you grow flippers. Nobody wants to say that. No one wants to admit to it. They just want to wait to get caught. And they don't get caught until it becomes big enough that it becomes a thing. This is the whole car accident thing from Fight Club. You know, if if the amount of money you have to pay out
Yeah.
for all these lawsuits doesn't outweigh the price of a recall, you don't do a recall.
Yeah.
Right? That concept, I love the fact that they kept that concept in the movie and put it front and center, because that concept runs through every single product in your existence. Everything you drink, everything you wear, everything in your life. And you may sit there and say, "That's, that doesn't matter with my computers." It does if the plastic the plastic they use on your keyboard, for example, is so toxic to you that just the tapping on it can cause you to have hormone disruption. I'm not saying that's what it is, but it can be. You know what I mean? Like, I did not think that plastics could mess with your hormones. And the other thing is, we're more full of plastic today than we have ever been before. And that they have tested for that. We have more plastic in us now than we've ever had, because there's more plastic out there.
Oh no, that part I believe.
Yeah.
I whenever I hear some of this stuff, the curious part to me.
Oh, is there more trans people?
Right? Are there actually more trans?
I think
people?
There always have been. This is the thing. This
but
homosexuality,
is,
a transsexual.
No, of course.
All of it has always been with us. There's always been an aspect of it in human society. This is not. It's not new in that respect.
I just wonder when people say, "Oh, it's more like autism. We're discovering it." Is it because they're diagnosing it? Is it because they didn't use to test for autism?
That is the question that we should.
I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no. I honestly don't know if we really know.
I remember reading something when I was in my my master's program in psych about how there are more cases of it. But it's also more nuanced now. They did the whole spectrum thing, right?
And there's an aspect to it too, where there may actually legitimately be more, but it also could be because society, in many ways, and because if communities are now known, where people are accepting of it, where you might have said, "Oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm just going to go to church and pray until it goes away," and you repress it.
OCD used to be its own thing, right?
Right. Yes. Now it's an aspect of.
But now it's on the autistic spectrum.
Right.
But the problem is, in making, honestly, I never understood why they did this. They put everything on this autistic spectrum, and I'm kind of sitting there going, why would you do that? OCD was already its own disorder. Like, why would you? I hate the latest version.
Would you like my cynical theory on that?
I hate the latest version of the DSM. Go on.
Well, my cynical borderline conspiracy theory
is that there's too many cases. There's too many cases of autism.
No, because then it can be used. Certain drugs can be used for it that weren't before, which means pharmaceutical sales.
Yeah, that is one of the arguments. Yes, you could say that.
It wouldn't shock me. Let's put
it
that way.
But you know what? But see, it doesn't really stop them, because there's a lot of. They're constantly trying to keep drugs in copyright.
Oh, I know.
And they'll keep folding around the use, because, like...
Yes, that's why the Viagra reseller Romans, who used to have commercials on every podcast in the known universe...
Yeah.
Now, instead of it just being treat ED, it's, oh, you can treat ED. Oh, is your hair falling out? Oh, are you depressed? Oh, it's like because Viagra now is clinically treatable for so many things, because whatever thing expired on it. Now it can be generic, so they had to find new reasons to be able to... Yeah, it's all...
Okay, so how does Viagra stop hair loss?
I don't know, but it does. I remember that whatever the thing was that made it so expensive lapsed. And then once it lapsed, suddenly, Viagra was now usable. Yeah, I'm telling you. Viagra, hair loss. Watch. Probably because it says it stimulates testosterone something. I'm sure they said it.
No, because it messes with blood pressure, doesn't it?
Well, hey, listen. Here we go. Does Viagra affect hair growth? No definitive answer, but some people have experienced hair growth as a result.
Jesus Christ, some people is never take anything based on the some people argument.
Wow. Listen to this word salad. Now, I'm sure if you work... No, not word salad like bullshit marketing. In other words, there's lots of big words here that I will sound smart saying this.
Okay.
Sildenafil, a PDE5 inhibitor, increases the intracellular level of CGMP, which causes the release of vasodilation inhibitors like neuropinephrine. It is unknown what effect it will have on human hair follicles, human dermal papilla cells, HDCPCs, and human embryonic stem cells, and are both... Yeah, see?
This makes me feel like I've just called phone sex and said, talk nerdy to me!
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
And I think so. Here, by the way, is the answer to your question about how can Viagra have any effect. There has been this is going to circle right around back to your article, so you can take right over. Is because there is a link that has been seen between erectile dysfunction and hair loss. So there again.
Wait a minute.
Causation or correlation.
You have hair loss. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me give you the counter argument. In my family, all the men have hair loss, and there's never been issues with erectile dysfunction. So I guess some people don't have it. Does that counter?
I've been losing hair since 20, and as of yet, I have not experienced any issues south of the Beltal region. So I agree.
I have, but it's not my penis. It's mostly my feet, which I keep busting one way or the other.
Well, no, and my feet are okay. So my statement stands on my side of the fence. But what I'm saying is, it's the same thing where a link was found. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
That goes back to the correlation is,
and that's where I'm pushing it right back into your.
And the thing is, I always find the study of BPA interesting because it is one of the few. It is a toxin that was prevalent in everything. I mean, when we were in college, everyone had an Nalgene bottle.
Well,
everyone.
Let's make sure we use this correctly. Is still prevalent in everything because it's one of those forever type chemicals.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course, exactly. But what I'm saying is they're not using it. They're not just actively using it as much as they used to because
but the stuff that's been used in doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. So the thing is that you end up in this situation where the fact that it's a hormone disruptor is frightening because it's not. I think at the end of the day, it's not that you've got one hormone disruptor. It's that you've got a lot of different powerful chemicals. It's like messing with black magic. And I hate to compare science and magic, but it's a metaphor here. It's like it's a simile. You're messing with black magic, and that you don't necessarily know what you're doing, but you know if you mix certain things together, you can get powerful results. But then, in the process of doing that, you also curse yourself, or you blow the room up, or it's like you don't understand the ramifications fully of what you're creating, because to some degree, you don't know what you don't know. You don't have the science yet to understand the full power of it. So you create BPA and you go, oh, this is great, we can use it for everything. Well, you know what? They used to use lead in makeup products until someone was like, hey guys, I think lead's really bad.
Well, remember those women, the radioactive
fluorocarbons
that killed the ozone layer, and then when they eliminated them, suddenly it healed itself.
But my AC was so cold. Remember how? So the BPA thing is fascinating to me because it's one example, but if there's one, there's many. And if there's many different types of hormone disruptors, the fear is that, what is it doing to us as a species? We're talking about how we're destroying the environment. Yeah, we're destroying the environment, and we are also directly destroying our own genetics. You know what I mean? Like, you start to wonder what we're doing. And I bring up the trans thing only because, it's far more prevalent now than it was when I was younger. It's not that it wasn't prevalent. There's always been trans and homosexuality. There's always been there, but it's more prevalent now. And what I'm trying to figure out is it a natural expression, or is it something that we've created? And I don't mean that in like the problem with this kind of research is I'm not putting blame. I'm not sitting there going, because trans people are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it'd be good to understand the why of how these things are affecting us. Is it just cultural? Like, have we culturally done this? Or is it like is it the culture struggling to deal with the biological fallout of something that has done to itself?
Or is it both?
Or is it both? True. And it's a really hot button issue because I don't want to tell anybody that they're wrong, but I try to question myself as well. I try to question my neurological disorder is the fact that I question everything, even me. It keeps me up at night. And I read this article and it just kind of set that thing off in my head where I was like, yeah, what else is this doing? And how difficult it is to some degree to escape this. You know, like, plastic is fucking everywhere. I'm wearing plastic right now. You know, my shirt has got some sort of petroleum product that, you know, that they've turned into a plastic that I've got on my body. Right? I'm wearing plastic. There's plastic bottles in the house. Not what do you call it? Like Nalgene ones, but like, you know, single-use ones that have been brought in from some day out or something like that. You know, I have plastic toys. I have plastic.
I guarantee the room I'm standing in is at least 70% plastic. I mean it, because I'm looking, and not the room itself. The room, you know.
No, but
like I'm looking at all the framed artwork. I'm looking at the DVDs, the microphone in front of me. You know.
Now I tell you, some of those plastics are fucking with you, and you're kind of sitting there going, "Which ones?" Because the thing is, it's not. Yeah, it's not even that you ingest them necessarily. Some of them, I mean, California loves to put out those warnings where it's like, don't let this rub your skin, could cause cancer. They put that warning out for fucking everything. And, you know, when I was younger and I used to read that warning, I used to be like, oh, Jesus Christ. Now I look at it and I'm going to go, you know what? Thank you for the heads up. I can't do anything about it because it's fucking everywhere, but thank you for the heads up. You know, they go after things like cigarettes where they're like, well, don't smoke because it could kill you. And I'm like, yeah, but this is like one thing. I was like, what about all the other shit that's going to kill us? Could you imagine what life would look like on this planet if we had a government that actually watchdogged for us and tried not to allow products that could hurt us? Yeah. I mean, I had
innovation would die, man. The innovation would die. Oh.
I saw my mother today. I love my mother. But my mother and I politically are very different people. She is a Republican. She's one of those older people.
My mother is a Facebookian. I don't think her politics are formed by anything else other than what people forward.
Well, no, my mother is an old school Republican who signed on to like the Trump era, right? And there's a lot of fake news that goes on when we have discussions, and I get very angry because facts are important. And we were having this discussion today. It started with healthcare, because I'm of the belief that there should be a government option in this country. She was under the misconception that we already had a government option. That's what Obamacare was. I explained to her that that's not what Obamacare was, that there is no free option in this country. But that turned into a conversation about governments, because she basically told me that I was, you know, she likes to tell me I'm a socialist. That's when I know I'm getting to her. She's like, you're a socialist. And I was trying to explain to her that no one government is correct. You can never have one piece of government. Like, in my opinion, someone turning to me and saying, well, you can only have capitalism, is someone coming to me and saying, you can only eat broccoli. Every meal, it has to be broccoli. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Broccoli, broccoli, broccoli. Have some broccoli to drink. Have some fried broccoli. Broccoli, broccoli, broccoli. While nutrient-wise, your body's going to starve. Because broccoli and capitalism do not work for everything. Government should be like a buffet. You should pick and choose from all the different foods to make a balanced meal. Take a little bit of, of capitalism. Take a little bit of communism, a little bit of socialism. You know what? You might even find that there's a little sprinkling of authoritarianism in there and fascism that might help at times, right? The key is to craft a government that works, that is caring and protects its people. That's the whole point of it in the first place. You know, I am both in awe and horrified by the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, because it is genius at times and kind of horrifying at others. You know, they clearly did not want women to have the vote. And they clearly did not trust the populace, because we never had a direct democracy. It was always a republic, because they didn't trust the morons. And they basically thought that a lot of people were morons. They're like, if you don't own land, if you're not a white Christian landowner, then you know what? Maybe we don't trust your vote. So we're going to do this whole republic thing, which is why, in the South, the slaves you owned counted, was it like it's 25% of a person?
I believe it was 1/5. Yeah, so
and so when you voted, the number of slaves you had counted as How many
Yeah.
people went with your vote? I mean, how fucked up is that at every level? So the idea of having a government that actually gives a shit is like this amazing fantasy of mine. I've actually debated trying to create an alternate genre to like post-apocalypse and like basically post utopianism, where like what happens in a universe where the governments all care. That's one of the things I love about AI. Like, you know, everyone's like, oh, AI will destroy us. I always like the idea that AI will not destroy us. And I've talked about this before. I thought, wouldn't it be hilarious if you turned an AI on and AI was like, you guys are all fucked up and I'm going to fix this. And rather than the dystopian future where Skynet shows up and goes, I must kill all of you. It's a AI that comes in and goes, guys, I'm going to fix all this, whether you like it or not. And yes, there'll be some die-off. There'll be people who don't like it. But could you imagine an AI that just wanted to, like, fix things? We'll just keep it in the U.S. for now, because that's where we live, right? An AI pops up that has decided that we cannot fucking take care of ourselves. And has decided that rather than destroy us, it's going to make things work. The incredible pushback as this machine starts to hack everything and essentially, like, counter the corruption, right? So these guys steal money, politicians steal money, it puts the money back where it's supposed to be. It starts deciding where the money should go. It starts putting money where it should go. It starts taking money out of corrupt bank accounts. Like, it literally starts to rework the fabric of our corrupt capitalist society. Could you imagine what that would look like? I mean, honestly, I want to write it because it just looks so goddamn amusing. And I'm so tired of post-apocalypse. I want some post-utopianism. But the joke of it is that we don't trust utopianism. Every time you read a book that's like anything that's any kind of utopia, it's always about how it's really actually fucking bad and it's built on terror, right? And then you find out, oh, you're killing the children. That's how you make utopia. But nobody has any problem with post-apocalypse. I always love that we're so sure that we can destroy ourselves, but no one believes that we could make an ideal world. So, I don't know where I'm going with it. I just want us all to be a little more hopeful, and yet at the same time, imagine what it would be like if we had a government that actually watched out for us. And you know what? Hold them accountable, because we should have caught this BPA shit so much longer before we found out. In fact, why didn't they do more research on it when they started using it? Or is this simply a matter of they didn't know what they didn't know? Because very often it's just a matter of they don't care. Anyway.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying.
I know, I've worked myself up into a tizzy is what it is. So I'm gonna change gears. But I'll stick with digital. We were playing Baldur's Gate, I think it was last night. Yeah. And something pissed me off. Something pissed me off in that game so much so it stuck with me. It stuck with me all day until I had a funny realization about it. So Joe and I are 50 plus hours into Baldur's Gate 3, right? And there was this interesting moment where we got to Moonrise Tower. And as we're walking in, the Will character gets a message that his demon, what do you call it? It sounds familiar. His demon pact.
I think, yeah, pact.
Yeah, basically the woman, the demon woman who has Will's leash, who basically gives him his power, that he has entered into a pact with, has called on him to do something for her, right? And Will tells his sweetheart Joe that, you know, I need to do this. At which point, I spoke to Karlak, who is another. The tieflings are basically like the commoner demon folk, and I think is the best way to describe it. They're not full on demons. They're kind of just like, you know, the peasants of the demon world. Yeah. Yes, right. She says, "Oh, you know, that's a bad idea. He shouldn't do that because, you know, when you deal with demons, you always lose." And she's very adamant about it. She's like, "You always lose when you deal with demons. Demons are bad, right? You just don't trust a demon." And not 10 minutes later in the game, she gets a note from someone that she used to know when she was working for the demonic forces. a being that she loosely refers to that kind of like a friend, but at the same time she says, but I wouldn't have trusted her to turn my back on her because she probably would have stabbed me.
No. I remember. She said if she'd been a completely different person, we might have been friends.
Yes, right. And she basically says, you know, she worked for these people and she was a demon and she was dangerous and, you know, and then this demon, quote unquote, friend leaves these things called soul coins, right? And Karlak says, oh, we should take those. Now, stupid me. I'm standing there going, bitch, 10 minutes ago, you told me never trust demons. Because every time you trust a demon, you get fucked. At which point, Karlak says, no, this is different. We'll take, you know, and honestly, the whole, you know, bitch, 10 minutes ago you said isn't a conversation option. Should have been. But she goes, no, we should take the soul coins. And my character and my decision very adamantly was, no, because my argument is simple. You said 10 minutes ago don't trust him. So we're not going to trust him. And then she got pissed off with me. And when you piss off one of your companions, there's a little thing that pops up in the corner that's like, Karlak disapproves or Will disapproves, right? So like if you know, you did something. Oh, we destroyed an entire temple to one of the characters is false god. And it was how do you spell what her name is? Lazel, whatever.
Lazel, whatever.
Lazel, yeah. She was upset with us. You know, rightly so. I mean, you know, it is what she believes, and we did blow the place up, you know. But to be fair, they were all dead anyway because we'd killed them. She wasn't angry about that. She was more angry that we blew the place up than the fact that we killed everybody in it. But, you know, nuance. So the Karlak thing pissed me off because I was like, wait a minute. It's like, what the fuck? And then I thought about it for a while, and I had this funny realization. That is so human. That is probably one of the most human things that has happened in a game to me, where a character has been like, you shouldn't do that because you're doing that's bad. It's really bad. You should do that. And then 10 minutes later says, why can't I do it? I can do it. It's okay if I do it. I was like, man, I don't know if they intended that or if it was unintentional human behavior, but that is probably the most human thing that has happened in that game to me. And I got in trouble with it for it in the game the same way I would have gotten in trouble in real life. If you had a friend, right, that was like, I don't know, you know, don't. There's no demons in real life, but you can imagine a situation where someone would be like, you know, don't ever trust. I don't know. Don't ever date a lawyer. Don't ever date lawyers because lawyers are bad, man. Don't ever trust lawyers. You can never date one. You can't trust them. And then that night you go to a bar, you're hanging out, and they meet a really hot lawyer, and they're like, I'm gonna go check that lawyer out. And you're like, hey, you said don't date lawyers. Oh, I know, but this lawyer is really cute. But you said don't ever trust or date lawyers, right? And then your friend does it anyway and gets annoyed at you, right? It is such a common human thing. And the fact that it bugged me as much as it did, I realized, yeah, it's because it is such a real reaction. So I don't know if it was intentional, the hypocrisy. But it made me laugh about 10 hours later. I don't know if you had a reaction like that to this game.
Have I had a reaction like that in this game? Not really. No, most of my reactions are kind of instant in the game. There are things where, you know, but not anything that I thought about later. Most of my stuff is generally in the moment.
Yeah, I just that whole thing, because you can even hear it in the recording. I don't know if you recorded that scene where I'm just so indignant about it. Where I'm like, what? I was like, disapprove of me? It's like, this is your fucking logic. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that would have been in my, you know, when you were saying that, if you had basically said, you know, what are your thoughts on it? My thing would have been like, well, that's something people do all the time, so I'm not shocked. So yeah, It's actually good writing.
Oh, it is?
Yes, the let's selectively compromise because, we think it's the right thing. That happens all the time.
Oh, everybody likes the right thing for everybody else, right? But nobody wants to do the right thing for themselves.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So, believe it or not, that's a compliment for the game. That it irritated me that much. Other than that, it's still a hoot to play. Now I actually have a pair of graphic novels I want to quickly review. But one of them is really quick because there ain't much to it. So I don't know. So I know that Cyberpunk 2077 had a what do you call it? An expansion come out recently, right?
Yeah, Phantom Liberty.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I've never played the game, but I know a bit about it because it's Cyberpunk and I love Cyberpunk. And they've created kind of a generic cyberpunk world, which has interested me.
Cyberpunk buffet.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they've kind of called on all these different elements. Now they have put out a bit of some novelizations and some graphic novels that take place in the world. So I was curious because I'm like, you know what? That's kind of neat. And I had read good reviews of one of these books, which is called Trauma Team, right? So now here's the thing. I'm coming to this with no knowledge. Like I don't really know what Trauma Team is. Do you know what Trauma Team is at all?
Nope.
Okay, so in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, there is basically a company that if you pay a membership to them, right, they will come extract you from wherever you are with medical support, right? So let's say you're a mob boss and you find yourself under attack and your people can't get you out of there. You would call Trauma Team and they will show up in some kind of hover ship with a military grade response team that will get you out and make sure that you're okay, right? That alone is a great idea. And that is something that honestly, this is what I mean by the kind of generic nature of it. I could see that in so many different cyberpunk novels. Like if something like Trauma Team had popped up in Gibson or Stevenson or fucking any of them, if Bruce Sterling, it sounds right?
Oh yeah, the name is a great name. Trauma Team is a very right? William Gibson or Stevenson name. Absolutely.
Right. So there's this one book called Trauma Team. It had pretty good reviews. I figured I'd check it out. Now, it is a very short book. This is the graphic novels that they put out. They feel like very short stories that were illustrated. That's the best way to describe them. They're in and out very quick. They're short books. There is very little fat on these. They are trim, right? So if you want something with a lot of character development, this is not your bag. But if you want to read something that is a hard, just fucking rampage through this generic cyberpunk world, which I don't say generic is a bad thing here. It's their attempt to kind of, like you said, it's like a smorgasbord of cyberpunk elements, right? I did actually really enjoy this book. It smacks of so many influences. Like, there's Neuromancer in there, and there's fucking Snow Crash in there, but there's even like bits of Judge Dredd in there and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like you can definitely feel it's very Matrixy in that respect. And what I mean by that is when I watch The Matrix, I see all the things that Wachowskis pulled on. You see the John Woo movies, and you see the sci-fi. You see the things that they loved that they then processed and repackaged into what they are, right? That is kind of how I felt about this book. Story is very simple. You have a member of a trauma team. There was a job that went wrong. The whole team got killed, except for her. She's the medic. And the person who did the job, who basically killed the team and killed the target, she saw him and he got away, right? So this is all told in kind of weird backstory as she's being interviewed by a trauma team to decide whether she is fit enough to go back into the field. She is not, but she needs to work. So they put her back in the field with a new team, and a job comes up. She goes with this team, and when they show up at the job, which is basically someone has killed a crime lord, and the entire building, this is where it gets very Judge Dredd, has turned against them because they apparently loved their crime lord. So trauma team goes in. It is hard to get to the person they're supposed to get out, and when they get to him, the medic realizes this is the motherfucker that killed her whole team. Right? Now she's got a problem, because what is she to do? She is employed to get this fucker out. But this is the guy that killed all her people. And one of those people she was romantically involved with. And they keep interspersing all these scenes of basically her relationship with her team and with this one particular guy, and how her and the guy kept having this conversation about the job, and how the guy was like, listen, he's like, the client comes first. He's like, if it's ever a decision between, you or the client, I always have to choose the client because, the client comes first. And that is obviously not her mindset. And so this new trauma team is trying to get the client out, and it goes disastrously wrong at every turn. And in the end, you're left with the medic and the client, and the question of whether or not she's going to kill him. Now, I'm 90% sure that she kills him in the end. But they leave just enough shadow of a doubt that if you really don't want to read it that way, you could. But I mean, like 90% sure that she kills him. Like, even the last shot is very much the fact that I think she's blown his brains out. But that's the book. It's a simple story, but the art is good. I like the world, and it was enough to make me be like, you know what? I want to read more about this world. This is kind of like Shadowrun. For those who know, Shadowrun was basically was it D&D that did Shadowrun? Or was it somebody else that did Shadowrun? I can't remember.
Let's see. I think maybe Shadowrun was independent, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, so
I think it probably was based. Shadowrun
was a role-playing game that was basically like fantasy cyberpunk. So you had like gnomes and dwarves and orcs and all this shit, but it was also like hackers and tech, and it was cyberpunk. It's fucking awesome. If you can read a Shadowrun book, there's still a few floating around out there.
It's its own thing. It was.
Oh, is it?
It's
awesome. Okay,
yeah.
They're totally worth reading. It is. It's not that they're good books. It's that it's a lot of fun to spend time in the Shadowrun world, especially if you like fantasy and cyberpunk, because they're an odd fit that's actually quite cozy. And I really hope that at some point Shadowrun will make a reemerge, because a Shadowrun movie would be awesome. Anyway, so I like the world of Cyberpunk 2077, and I enjoyed the Trauma Team book enough so that I'm going to try. There's a novel that came out that I'm going to try, which is about like some sort of heist gone wrong. Which, I mean, heist gone wrong, that's just smacks of Gibson, right? So this very much reads to me like cyberpunk pop. I don't want to call it trash. It's like reading a trashy B movie of something that you like that's better. You know what I mean? But like, it's still really good because it's just so. It's not trying to be more than what it is. You know what I mean? It's like reading it's like when you read like a. See, neither of us read bad romance novels, but it's like, to me, it's that.
No. I have the perfect analogy. It's why I
go
watch
ahead.
Shocking Dark. It's
There you go. There you go. Yeah, and you watch it and you're like, oh, you know what? This is a lot of fun. And I know that it's not genius. It's not like, but it's so much fun, So yes, I enjoyed Trauma Team. As long as you're willing to hop in, no questions asked, and just write it quick through, I think it is worth a read. It won't take you long, and I know that there's some other ones that they did, but this was the one that had the best reviews, and they were good. It was enjoyable. I do not regret having read this. It's not necessarily original. It's just kind of been repackaged, and if you're looking to chew on that particular flavor, it's a good way to spend an hour, which is the complete opposite of my next review. So I finally read volume 2 of The Human Target. I texted you when I finished it, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
I did. I was what was that line from Star Trek? I was emotionally compromised after reading this book. This might be my favorite Tom King book.
I was going to say we should be clear because they've redone him
There's
times.
There's a TV show.
There's a new one.
Okay, so this is the Tom King run on DC Black Label of The Human Target. DC Black Label has kind of become, I think, they're not quite Elseworld, where Tom King is allowed to kill characters off. Is really what it is. So I reviewed the first half of this at some point. So if you want, stop now and go listen to the other show where we did the first volume. Volume 2 is the culmination. It is the finale of the Human Target story. So for those who don't know, the Human Target is a DC character who would basically mimic people and then act as a target to then figure out who was trying to kill them. They took the idea, and I think the idea goes back to like the 70s, doesn't it? Like this is like an old...
It's a character. It might be before that. Yes, the original one was 1953.
Yeah.
I think the Christopher Chance one is the 70s one. I'm looking here.
Okay. Yeah, so Chance...
second.
Yeah, so Chance, in the first book, he's hired to basically...
72. 72 was Christopher Chance.
There you go. He's hired to be Lex Luthor for the day because Lex Luthor suspects someone is trying to kill him. So he basically assumes the identity of Lex Luthor. He's very good at making himself look like other people. And he finds out that he's been poisoned by a very specific, pernicious poison that will kill him. I think it's like 14 days or something like that. And what proceeds to go on is him investigating his own murder. Who was trying to kill Lex Luthor. And it becomes kind of a weird who's who of the lesser known Justice. Are they Justice Society? They're Justice League, aren't they? Like Fire and Ice are Justice Society, aren't they? I think it's Justice Society. Yeah, so basically...
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's JSA.
They bring in... So in the first book, they bring in people like Blue Beetle. They bring in people like Booster Gold, Martian Manhunter. And what happens is the character of Ice quickly kind of gets involved with him to find out kind of like what the hell is he up to, because one of the people I think he suspects is Fire, and you know that Ice and Fire are very, very close.
Right.
And Guy Gardner comes off like a huge douche in these.
What?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know, bigger than normal, like kind of a douche, but also kind of a brutish douche. Like he's kind of dumb. And in the first book, Ice basically starts to have weird feelings for Chance, and likewise Chance does for her, because he quickly starts to realize that she is not what she comes off to be. She is not this nice, sweet girl. There is this femme fatale quality to her, and yet at the same time, she is also like, there is something beautifully sweet about her. So she gets involved with Chance. Green Lantern, Guy Gardner doesn't like that because apparently Guy Gardner has a thing for Ice, and they appear to kill Guy Gardner in Volume 1, right? So in Volume 2, everything gets unraveled. But I give it to Tom King. There's a whole chapter in there about how Chance thinks that Batman is following them, right? And so this whole like section is him trying to draw Batman out, because he thinks that Batman knows that they killed Guy Gardner. So he's like, oh man, he'll know by now. He's like, I know him. He's like, I've studied him. He's like, because Batman is another Chance type, right? I mean, in some ways, Chance is like he's like a Batman in that respect, where he's always got a plan, but it's on a much more sort of street level. But he thinks that Batman must know, so he's trying to draw Batman out. He's doing all this stuff. He doesn't want Ice to realize what he's doing because she's with him. And then at one point, he realized, fuck. He's like, Batman's not coming. He's like, why isn't Batman coming? He's like, it's either because he doesn't know yet. He's like, which is fucking impossible. He's like, or there's something else going on. And then there's a great sequence in there where he drugs Ice. Like, she stays over and he drugs her in the morning so she falls asleep because he doesn't want her to be involved in this next part. And he goes and he finds, who is that Green Lantern that looks like Barf from what do you call it? Oh God, what's his name?
Barf from Spaceballs?
Yeah, have you ever seen this? He looks like a dog. What is his
dog?
name?
I know there's the one that looks like a raccoon.
No, he looks like a dog with a mustache. What the fuck is his name? He's
Not Gnort.
Gnort.
Right?
Gnort. It's Gnort. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Gnort.
Yeah. So the way they draw Gnort, I swear to God, he looks like Barf.
Well, you know what? Yes. Now I'm looking at the classic '90s. Yeah, you're right. He looks like a dog with a mustache. He looks like a Yorkie.
So Gnort is basically, the way they portray him in this is that he's a Green Lantern, but he's kind of a Green Lantern that's put out to pasture a little bit. He drinks a lot. He's kind of left alone. He's treated as kind of like a doofus. But they won't take his ring away. They'll put him on probation. And Chance realizes that Gnort might be someone who will help him. So there's a great chapter in there where he goes to visit Gnort, and him and Gnort get really drunk, and he convinces Gnort to help him. And Gnort takes him to like OA. OA takes him to the mission control of Green Lantern. And Gnort, was that?
Can I tell you the funniest thing about Gnort?
Oh, by all means.
He started off, my understanding is, as a goof character.
Yeah.
And how you know that is Keith Giffen was involved in his creation. Keith Giffen, sorry. I said Keith Giffen. And his major...
that's not the Savage Dragon guy, is it?
No, that's Eric Larson.
Oh, Larson.
Keith Giffen did Lobo.
Oh.
Yeah. That guy. Yes. As well as one of my favorite comics of all time, which is unbuyable right now, called Trencher, which I adore, but I cannot get a good version of. Anyway, Gnort's primary enemy is called the Scarlet Skier, a herald for a cosmic being known as Mr. Nebula. He's a joke version of the Silver Surfer. He is literally a guy who looks like the Crimson Dynamo, but with skis on, and it's the Scarlet Skier. It is ridiculous. Anyway.
Okay, so Gnort is ridiculous, but he is used in this book incredibly, which is that Chance knows that Gnort is one of the weaknesses to OA security. So he goes in with Gnort and goes into the records, and he starts using... Apparently, the Green Lanterns have kind of a Big Brother thing going on, where the rings apparently are constantly taking information in, right? Like, constantly, of everything around them. And he's like, well, Jesus, he's like, the Green Lanterns would know if Guy Gardner was dead. But by this point, he's not sure Guy Gardner's dead. Because if Batman didn't come looking... Batman must know something he doesn't know, because he's like, Batman would know by now. So he and the other element to this is that, which I'm getting ahead of myself, is that at one point they put out people have realized that Guy Gardner's missing, and one of Guy Gardner's friends from like essentially what is the West Coast Avengers of Justice Society, a Russian character named, I think his name the Red Rocket or something like that, shows up and beats the shit out of Chance. Because he's like, where is my friend? And at that point, that's when Chance gets really pissed off. So they break into OA, and Gnort knows how to get in, because Gnort is such an imbecile that no one seems to give a shit about what he does. And he knows it. And there's kind of like this weird crisis to the character where he's like, nobody really cares about me. And he's like, oh, whatever, fuck him. And to the point of which that once Chance goes into the records and finds out that essentially Guy Gardner's alive. When they're trying to leave, one of the not the Watchers. What are they called? The blue meanies. They're the blue guys called the blue guys who run the
Oh,
Green
the
Lantern
Guardians.
Corps.
The Guardians.
Guardians.
Sorry,
One of the
the
Guardians shows up and is like, Gnort, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to have. And Gnort kicks him in the groin and knocks him unconscious.
Well, there you have it.
And I'm like, right. This is this. I mean, I now love this character. Like, this simple chapter has made Gnort legendary. Because he doesn't give a shit. He goes, they'll probably put me on probation after this. He's like, I don't give a crap. And he gets Chance back to Earth. And now Chance goes and finds Guy Gardner. And basically finds out that he faked his death because Ice asked him to. And Ice essentially, like, told him that Chance was a stalker and that she just needed time to figure it out on her own and that he should fake his death and lay low for a while. Essentially, Guy Gardner was manipulated by Ice. And in respect, Chance realizes that he's being manipulated by Ice. But he doesn't want to let her know yet. And at one point he goes to interview Fire. And that's an interesting chapter because the whole time he goes by himself, and the whole time he's with Fire, Fire is coming on to him. And she is very all over him. And he's trying to question her. And like he won't give in. And at the end of it, you realize that she's testing him. She wants to know if he's douchey enough that he'll bang Fire because she's available. And he doesn't, because what you realize with Chance is that he is genuinely in love with Ice. And the problem is, as the story goes on, is you realize that, I guess here's the spoiler alert for everybody. But if you've been listening to this show for this long, it shouldn't surprise you. And honestly, you're pretty sure about this from about halfway through the book. Ice did it. Ice killed Lex, or tried to kill Lex Luthor. She's the one, and the story basically is that at one point in DC Continuum, Ice was killed by some creature. And then they brought her back later on in one of their, universal re-ups. She was resurrected, right? And Guy Gardner at some point comes to her, and she couldn't take revenge because the thing that had killed her was long gone. Like, that event was over, that creature had been destroyed. But Guy Gardner says to her, you know what, I found out who summoned that creature to our world. It was Lex Luthor. He's like, Lex Luthor is responsible for the thing that killed you. At which point, Ice is sitting there going, I want to kill him. And so she was trying to figure out a way to murder Lex Luthor, but that would actually stick. Because she says the problem is you can't arrest the guy, and no conventional attack on him will work because he'll always see you coming. So she was like, you got to do something that he won't. Something like a Fire convinces her, like, you have to do something, because Fire was also in on it. You have to do something that's so pedestrian that the likes of Lex Luthor wouldn't think that somebody would be so stupid to try that. Like, poison me? Really? And so she gets this poison, and she gets it by using essentially access from Booster Gold and Blue Beetle and Martian Manhunter. Inadvertently, they don't realize what they're giving her access to, and she gets this very powerful, alien level technology poison. Problem is, she gave it to Christopher Chance, right? And now he's gonna die. And what I love about this book is that you figure out that she did it, but the thing is, you're kind of sure, you kind of know she did it at one point in there. But the thing is that Chance is actually, because he realizes he's dying, he's actually fallen in love with somebody. And it's like the book is so noir. Like, it's such a detective book. And at the same time, it's like this, it's so, I hate to use the phrase beautifully sad, where like Chance knows he's running out of time and he just wants to be with this woman. And he talks about how his father took loans and started betting because he wanted a better life for his kid. And at one point, things went south, and he remembers his father begging the assassin not to kill him. And Chance was telling me how, like, it always bothered him, his father groveling. And then when he's talking to Ice, he's already told her he knows she did it. And he basically says to her, he goes, I realize now he wasn't groveling for his life. He was groveling for more time to be with me, because he loved his son. His father and him, like, his father really loved him. You know, this isn't one of those daddy stories where he's like, my father was abusive. His father loved him. And I guess in that respect, it's very Daredevil, right? Daredevil's dad loved him and then was taken away. And Chance realizes that whole idea is like, my father wasn't begging for his life. He was begging to have more time with me. Is the same way that he's like, I just want to spend more time with you. And it's so fucked up because she's the killer. He knows she's the killer. And it doesn't matter anymore because he's not going to kill or take revenge on the woman that he has come to love. The only thing he does do is he won't let her be there for when he actually dies. And I think that is a little bit of his sort of revenge, was the fact that he says, I should do this on my own. So, and the book like basically ends with her finding his body. But then he leaves her something. You don't realize what he's left her. He's left her something that she can use. And what you realize at the end is that what Christopher Chance leaves her at the end is the ability to kill Lex Luthor. Because the last frame in the book is her there to, quote unquote, investigate the death of Chance. So she's in Luthor's office. And Luthor's like, well, I don't know why they didn't send somebody else. He's like, like, you're such a second stringer, aren't you, Ice? He's like, you're so sweet. He's like, I can't possibly be afraid of you. And she's there with the poison and she's smiling at him. And it's supposed to it's this ending of, yes, Chance has given her the ability to actively kill Lex Luthor, which is what she wanted. It is a fantastic book. There is so many little things that I am missing that you will catch when you read it. It is such a interesting character study of the character of Chance. And also this idea of like what matters to you at the end of your life. Like when you're fucked, you're proper fucked. There's no way around it. There's no cure. And in that respect, it didn't have to be a superhero book. This could have been a noir crime novel about a guy who gets poisoned, and it still would have been fucking fantastic. The superhero element of it is just kind of like extra awesome trimming. The character of Chance is awesome to spend time with. The way that Ice is portrayed by Tom King is, she is a, I don't want to call her a femme fatale. Yes, she did kill him, but she didn't intend to kill him. Like that wasn't her target. And she's done very well. Like she is both hard and dangerous, but there is also something very vulnerable about the character. So I'm sad that the series is over, but I'm also glad because I guess much like Trauma Team, where the Trauma Team book is very trim. This is 2 volumes. It's I can't remember. I think it's 14 days, and it is excellent. The reaction of the character that when Guy Gardner's friend, the Russian rocket or whatever his name is, he basically kidnaps Chance to try and question where Gardner is, and Chance realizes that this whole endeavor has lost him a day. He's literally lost 24 hours of the time he could be spending with Ice on this fucking asshole. And it's when the guy finally lets him go, it's kind of everything he can do not to just kill the fucker, because that is the one thing that makes him angry, is that he has no time left and somebody has just stolen 24 hours of it, and that infuriates his ass. So yes, I think you would love this book. The heartbroken noir will appeal to you to no end. I like this just about as much as I like Mr. Miracle, which up to now has always been my favorite Tom King book. I put this on par with Mr. Miracle. The difference is that Mr. Miracle has a happier ending. Whereas this book, it's very bittersweet. And I like that they did that. I like that they didn't try to pull back from it. It was like the beginning of the book is basically a Chance saying, I'm going to die. And then he does. Not only that, they tease Batman and they never bring him in. I love that. The fact that they were able to restrain themselves, that they did, because if someone starts going on about Wolverine in a comic book, Wolverine's going to show up before the end.
It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. But there's a whole chapter of this book about how Chance is sure that Batman is right around the corner. And then when Batman doesn't show up, it's like the catalyst that makes him realize that something is wrong. Batman's already figured something out, and now he needs to figure out what Batman knows. And that's it. Batman never shows up. The restraint. So, I absolutely adore this series. If you like mysteries, if you like noir, especially if you like the that kind of heartbroken noir, that bittersweet noir, The Human Target, Tom King, Greg Smallwood, is a fucking awesome book. Awesome. I adore it. And I'll be very curious when you read it one day, if you get a chance, what your reaction to it is. Because I was reading it and there was stuff in there I was like, this is so written for people like you and me.
It sounds great.
It is. It's great.
Yeah. Someday maybe I'll get to it.
I mean, there's so much to read.
I don't read comics at any type of the pace I used to. It's that simple. I just don't read that many anymore.
You and I
have springtime in Chernobyl, and I've had that comic for 7 or 8 years now. Whatever.
You and I have diverged and gone different paths, and the joke of it is that you can blow through movies,
yes,
and I can blow through graphic novels.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what the actual biggest problem with it is.
Time.
No, it's not time. It's not time because I read lots of books because they're on my Kindle. They are getting close to having good color.
It's having it on the Kindle.
Once I can get because I've tried to read on the iPad and I can only do it for so long and my eyes just start getting bothered. I mean, it looks beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. But I will be willing to give up a bit of fidelity if it means it's easier on my eyes, and then I would go through comics quick. If I could just sit out with a good, because the other part is when I like to sit outside, well, then it's a reflection fest, and I can't.
Yeah, of course.
It's just terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. So and they are getting really close. I mean, I would say within the next 3 or 4 years, we will have a very good e-ink screen. That's not $2,000 that will be able to display comics. Because the nice part about comics is you don't have to flip through them quickly. So there's none of the, because e-ink's biggest problem is motion. Well, it's not a problem with this. So I can sit there.
Yeah, because you can take as long as you want with every frame. Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and eventually, honestly, if it gets really good, then they'll start reframing comics to meet the shape of that kind of device. But
at some point, somebody will make a
copy.
comic reader that is comic book shape. That's fine.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know yet if the industry supports it enough that they need it, but when they do, they will.
Oh no, there is a high demand for color e-ink, and it is being worked on. I mean, that's because not even so much for the content, but because it lasts so long battery wise. That is the real value. Is that I don't have to. My Kindle, I barely ever remember. I remember to charge it because I think about it, not because it ever says you're low on battery. It never says I'm low on battery. Never. I was just like, it's probably getting down because it's been, 2 months? Let me just plug it in. And, an hour later, it's like, fully charged, ready to go for 3 years, sir. I'm like, all right, good. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I still like reading hard copy, and there's still plenty of it. But, man, it's getting harder. Yeah, it is getting harder to get.
I still buy hard copy. I just don't read it that much anymore. But when something's really good, I just bought the Dune book, the oral history of Dune. I bought the physical, very nice edition of it. And I bought it on Kindle. That's how I'm reading it.
It's so okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's the same reason I like having a copy of Snow Crash. And, The Divine Comedy, because when you become too dependent on technology is when it fails you.
Oh yeah.
And if at some point, whatever, I can't read on the Kindle. Let's say Amazon says, okay, we're now going to sell all your information, including everything. Okay, I'm going to burn it, throw it away, and then I'll go back to books. Bye. I like to have the ability to turn to my bookshelf and still be able to pull. And I do still read, but I'm not going to buy every single comic that looks interesting. Whereas, you know what I mean, in physical form, because I don't have the room. But I could buy 100 comics.
Oh well, that is, yeah. The room. Listen, the room becomes the problem. When I moved, I actually did. I was forced to downsize my collection a little bit.
Speaking of which, the e-ink device I want to buy is now available. Okay, I just noticed that. Well, because I periodically think about it because I forget it is now available, so I'm going to buy the Palma.
You're talking about it, and then you go, "Oh, you know, I should actually look for that."
And it's finally available. Jeez, this thing has been pre-sale forever. I'm going to get one of these. All right. Anyway,
is it a comic reader?
No. This is one of those things that. Okay. I think a lot of people will understand this.
What
no, because I'm going to explain
do?
Because it's a $280 device.
Okay.
Which is not inexpensive. For some people it is literally an e-ink Wi-Fi phone. It's a e-ink Android device. Here, I'll send it to you. It's called the Boox Palma or Box.
It's a phone?
Well, it's not because it doesn't have a SIM device, but if you put it on Wi-Fi, it is. You know what I mean? It's a phone-sized e-ink device. Now, this is one of those things because this is such a specific type of mindset I have, or maybe it's not. Sometimes I think only I think this way, and then I find out, oh no, lots of people think this way. I have an extraordinarily harsh, bright as the sun, shining line that comes down. I'm making the motion with my hand like a knife that comes down in my life between what I use my phone for in terms of work versus personal. I will not install anything for my job on my phone, ever. The couple times I install it, use it for that one thing, and uninstall it. I do not want any crossover. I hate it. I hate the very concept of it. But I recognize that there are things that are very useful if I had a pocket-sized device that I could use for work stuff, but I don't want to cross that line. This thing I want to try out because I could probably get reimbursed for it. But I have to use it.
You want to use this for work, huh?
Yeah. I think this would be good to have as a work device.
I'm checking it out right now. I mean, it's interesting, but this thing will live or die on its operating system. Yeah,
well, it's Android. It's just Android.
So it's just running Android.
It's running Android, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of those things.
I will be hugely curious to see how this runs for you.
This is a thing. This falls into a very specific category for me, which is this is one of those things that right now in my life I can get one of these and it will not hurt me in any way. That may not always be true. You know what I mean? So I want to try something out like this because I don't do a lot of cutting edge tech anymore, mostly because it's extremely expensive and it often peters out to nothing. But I so love e-ink. I have wanted the idea of an e-ink phone forever just because of the power savings. So I want to try this thing out. And like I said, at this point in my life, I have the ability.
I am very excitedly looking forward to your review.
Yeah. Because this does look... And plus, I don't know, there's something that's just so appealing about this thing to me. But,
I read so much
it's something
on my
that,
phone.
If a year from now, I might not be able to afford to buy something like this. So it's like, I can now, and I'll use it, so I want to try it.
I read so much on my phone that for me, having the Kindles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There is a part of me that would go for a handheld Kindle-like experience, just because I'm on the go. This is my mother today when I spoke to her was talking about how she's getting rid of a shopping bag full of National Geographic. And I was like, well, did you read them all? And she was like, well, no, I just read the main articles. And I was like, why didn't you read them all? She's like, she goes, who can get through a whole National Geographic? And I was like, I do. Oh. And she's like, I was gonna say, whoa. She's like, when do you have the time to do that? And I'm like, well, I was like, and this is the tip for anybody. Keep a folded magazine in your car. You'll find that you are often waiting places and have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just sit and read. Just fold the magazine up. Unfold it when you need to read it. You're going to find that you'll get through a lot of magazines So yeah, I've read a lot of National Geographic cover to cover. So anyway,
the other reason
yes.
I want to try this is because of what I just sent you, which is they make a color large tablet. Now I'm not willing to spend that much to test out something.
A color e-ink.
Yes, but I don't. It's not quite there yet. So if this thing is good as monochrome, it tells me the device is.
How do they get the color?
Oh, they've had color for a long time. The problem is the fidelity isn't quite there yet. Like the Pixel, it still looks a little washed out.
Is this also running on?
I believe
Android?
that's also an Android device. Yes. So if this one is really good, then I know that these people know how to make a good device. So when the bigger one comes out, I will.
Oh, so this one's not even out yet.
Well, the one I sent you is, but it's expensive, and I don't think it's where I need it to be for comics yet.
Got it.
That's what I'm getting at. But this is kind of my test run on it. But you look at when they draw on it in that color, the little video they've got.
It looks cool. I you know what? I just don't like Android. So.
Well, but you'd only be. But you would never.
But this is a Coke. This is a Coke Pepsi thing. That's all this is.
Well, because Apple will never make e-ink. You know that.
No, they never will. Yeah.
No. So that's the thing is, and I don't look.
No, they keep going for more and more eye-searing fucking monitors. We're like, this one's eye-piercingly sharp, and you're like, it hurts to look at, you know.
To be very specific, I hate Android on a tablet. However, I would only be using this thing to read comics, and I know it can do that. I'm not going to be using it as a tablet.
But the problem, like you said, is not for that much. Yeah.
Well, not until it's where I need it to be. And then would I read comics enough to make it worth it? Yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. And it takes up no space. But, like I said, this is a complete tangent. But e-ink is getting close to that fidelity. And then would I spend a good amount? Yeah, I would. Yeah. Because I would love to read more comics, but I just can't do it on the iPad very much. And it's not anything to do with the fidelity. The fidelity is sensational. It's the reading experience is fucking trash. It just is. It's not good to read on an iPad.
I tried reading comics on my computer screen.
Yeah, it's not good.
And because it was cheaper than buying the comics, and it sucked.
Yeah, but like I said, on this e-ink device, I think it would actually be very different, and it would be much better. So when this thing gets there, I'm on board. It's just not there yet. I don't care who it is. These guys seem to be really on top of it more than most others. Amazon doesn't seem to really care about color e-ink. That's the other problem.
Who's gonna buy them?
Hey man, they're on Gen whatever. Somebody's buying these.
No. What I mean is, no. Who's gonna buy the company? That's usually what happens.
Well, who cares? If the underlying company's solid, I mean, I'll when it comes to comics, I am utterly agnostic. I don't have any ecosystem.
I wouldn't put it past Amazon to be like, they've got a color Kindle screen. That means we don't have to do it. Well,
I hope they do because whatever. I hope somebody keeps this going. I don't care who it is. And I'm not locked into anybody's ecosystem in comics, so I can go wherever it goes. I don't care who it is. So
I just still read hard.
By the way, this is the other reason, as much as you don't like Android, that you want it to be Android. That means that you can put comics on there that can't be sold anywhere. It's an important reason you want Android. One thing about iOS, they will not allow you to sideload anything. Whereas, let's say there's a comic that you'd like to buy, like Trencher, but you can't. So the only way you have it is a different way.
I am now interested in what the fuck Trencher is.
Oh, it's the yeah, you don't know Trencher. Well, luckily you can read it online for free. Just look up Giffen Trencher.
No, I think I found it.
Yeah.
The first Lord.
It's wild.
Jeez, it says image. What? Oh, I do know Trencher.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, that is wild. Is that?
Yes.
Who did that?
Keith Giffen, the guy who did Lobo.
No way.
Yes, it's the same guy.
I never read this whole run.
Well, unfortunately, it's only 4 issues, so it's pretty easy. And there is a website that has the entire thing online. I was just looking at it. Of course, I closed the tab.
But you can't buy it.
You cannot buy it. I mean, you could literally buy the issues, but it's not digitally available.
Set of 4 comics.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, you can buy it. Oh yeah,
this shit's weird looking.
Yeah, but I would love to have a digital, clean version of it. I mean, the comics. I have 2 of the comics. They're so yellowed.
Why don't you just buy a copy and then scan it?
You know what?
Make it your addition to the
Now,
comic digital
you know
world.
what? That's the problem. Do you know how long I would spend on it to try to get it?
Ever.
It would never, ever get done. It would never get done. I mean, I just know myself, and I'm way too anal about this stuff.
You know what? I always need something to tinker with, so.
I do too, but here's the entire thing, the whole run online. There's always one line.
Why is it available online?
Well, because if you look, that's the whole comic. Because somebody scanned their comic in and nobody cares because it was not a successful comic, therefore nobody's paying attention.
So they just don't care?
Yeah. They don't care. And the thing about this comic is I so dearly love one specific panel from it for no reason whatsoever, which is on that thing I just sent you, go to issue 3.
That thing will not load on my my browser.
Really? It loaded on mine. I'm in Firefox. I'm not in Safari, though.
It will not load for me.
Really?
No, it will not.
Hold on. Try this one.
We know what... No, we'll talk about it later. Just let me know
really
what
weird.
the frame is.
Well, for anybody else, the name of the site is readcomiconline.li. I don't know what that is, but apparently it's a place that loads comics people scan. So go find Trencher, select issue 3, and the panel you want is, or the page number. What page number is this? This is page number. Oh, good grief. It doesn't have the page numbers. Hold on. I I loaded the thing where it puts all the pages at once. Hold on. I'll tell you all the page. The page number is, I'm going to bet out of these, it's probably 23. Come on. Am I right? Oh, I'm off by, I think, 1. Now I'm off by 2. Sorry, I'm off by 3. It's page 20. Page 20, just before Supreme is about to kill Trencher. While he's carrying his own head, he has this one line of dialogue, which is, "Endgame, Phoebe, this chassis is history." And I don't know why that line has stuck with me my entire life.
Do it as screen cap and send it to me.
Okay, I'll do a screen cap and send it to you. Anyway, how do I do a screen cap with this thing? Whatever, I'll do it later. Anyway, so let me do my other. We'll be here for 2 more hours because I have to open Photoshop. I have to do a bunch of things.
No. Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it now.
Yeah,
just do it for me.
I will send it to you. In any event,
yes,
that brings me to
that concludes
patient mode.
That concludes my material.
Okay, that's everything you got. I just want to make sure. That's everything. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's the collected book 2 for Human Target, right? Did I get the right?
Yes, that is volume 2. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they'll probably do some sort of like super duper absolute collection where they put them both together. But
did you? You got that in physical or online?
I have it on physical. I read everything physical.
I assumed. I was just making sure it wasn't one of those where it's only available,
No. It's physical. Yeah, this is definitely physical. I've been waiting for this one, and it came out. The worst part is this came out a while ago, and I had it on a pile, and because of the move and everything like that, I didn't get to it. And then when a book's going to be heavy, like it's going to affect you, that you're like, okay, I should wait for the right day to read this because I don't want to. Yeah. So I was kind of waiting for a little bit of time.
Oh, I think that worked.
And then I was right. It did affect me because it put me in a very strange mind space for the rest of the. It's so good. It's so good.
I think I actually was able to send you the screenshot.
Endgame.
That's it. I don't know why that friggin' line has always stuck with me for some reason. I don't know.
I do love the art though. That's awesome.
The art's what he is apparently attempting to do like a Jeff Darrow crossover with something else. Like he was trying to do some kind of weird, stylized, weird detail.
I love that. I love that Supreme's muscles have muscles.
Oh yeah. It's a ridiculous comic. But like I said, the fact that he's carrying his own head that Supreme has punched off his body, and that's anyway.
I mean, and Lobo's like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he did Ambush Bug. Like once you know what Keith Giffen has done, it all sort of makes sense. There's a very big through line on how his stuff works.
His logic works.
Yes. So, as I've said many times, I love the Criterion channel. I love the Criterion collection, and they have added some Halloween collections to their streaming service, which I have. And I noticed that one of them is called the Pre-Code Collection. And for people who don't know what they mean by pre-code, there was a period of time between the introduction of sound to cinema, and what was called the Hays Code, which became essentially the rating system, or the MPAA code. But there was a period in between there where there was really no guidelines on what you could put in movies. And so there was a period of time where movies were being released that were later seen as, for the time, obscene. Even though there was no real, most of the time there was no actual nudity. There wasn't anything that today we would say is obscene. But there was this, it was seen as uncouth for the time. Mostly because for example, here's an example of what you could not put into your films. Let's see, the very first one. Pointed profanity, including the words God, Lord, Jesus, Christ, unless used reverently in connection with proper religious ceremonies. Hell, SOB, damn, God, and any other God being GAWD, and every other profane and vulgar expression, however it may be spelled. So that is an example of one thing. There were far more. For example, the use of the flag must be done cautiously. Arson, cautiously. Use of firearms, cautiously. Okay, I'm going to mispronounce this. Let me get this right. White slavery, which I didn't know what that meant. I don't know if you know what white slavery refers to. Do you know what that means?
It's
okay.
Not Greek. It's not Greek, right?
No. I'll give you another term that it means, which is miscegenation. Miscegenation.
Oh, where basically a woman is being controlled by a man?
No, sexual relations cross race. That's what white slavery. The sexual enslavement of white women by non-white men, meaning.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. So this is what the Hays Code started to regulate. But again, there was this period of time where there was nobody really paying. Well, not they were paying attention, but there was no guidelines in place. And then the Hays Code came in and made a lot of things, very, very specifically bordered. And there is a beautiful, and I am going to be having this. I did not know about this image until about a week ago. But this will be hanging in the room I'm standing in within a short time. Look at this fantastic image, and I want to give you the background of it. This image was taken in 1940 by a photographer named Whitey Schaefer. Look at that image. He basically, that image he did basically showing the Hays Code and putting multiple things from it. And he has like a top 10, like his commandments of what you're not supposed to have in your films. And it is a beautiful image.
The law defeated.
Yep.
Inside of the thigh. Oh, the inside of the thigh.
Uh-huh.
Lace lingerie. Dead people. Dead man. Narcotics, drinking, exposed bosom. Well, it's not really exposed. It's just kind of.
It is for the time. Don't forget the time.
True. Yeah, you're right. Ankles were sexy.
Right.
The drinking, exposed bosom, gambling, pointing a gun, and a Tommy gun. I like how the Tommy gun is just floating there.
I love how he has the woman handling the gun as if it's a dick. I think that's great because there's no way that's accidental. That is not accidental. Anyway. So there were movies that came out in this what they call pre-code era. There's a bunch of them. And the one that caught my attention has the title Island of Lost Souls from 1932. It's a black and white film with sound and is, as you might guess, an adaptation of The Island of Dr. Moreau. And starring Charles Lawton, Richard Arlen, and Kathleen Burke, as well as Lila Hyams, however you're supposed to pronounce that. And the story is basically The Island of Dr. Moreau. Now, I don't remember the book. I read it so long ago. I'm sure there are things that have been changed, but the overalls are, as far as I am aware, the same. So what happens is an individual named Edward Parker is on a ship, and the ship encounters some kind of storm or trouble, sinks. He is the only survivor, and he is picked up by a freighter that happens to have an awful lot of animals on it that are traveling to some place in the South Sea. And he comes to, and it happens that there is a doctor on the boat. Well, what he says is, are you a doctor? And he says, well, I was. But he obviously has medical knowledge and, tends to him over the course of a few days and brings him back to life. So he had been out in the sea for some amount of time and was near death. He comes back to. And once he's in shape to kind of get up and walk around, he comes out onto the deck, and then we have this exchange where we basically find out where the ship is going and what the captain thinks of it. So let me play this little clip for you right here.
Morning, Captain. I want to thank you, Captain, for...
Who are you?
Mr. Parker. This is Captain Davies.
Parker? Parker?
Yeah, we picked him up day before yesterday.
Why wasn't I told about it?
We tried to wake you.
Why didn't you?
You had a slight list to port.
What do you mean?
You were drunk.
Drunk, was I? Well, why wouldn't I be, with a cargo like I got?
Cargo is cargo.
I know, but this boatload of filthy animals, all the way from Mombasa. To where? To some island. Which island? You answer me that, Mr. Montgomery.
You're well paid for it.
An island without a name. An island not on the chart. Hey, you think I don't know whose island that is, don't you? Well, I do, Mr. Sawbones Montgomery.
Easy, Captain.
Well, it's Dr. Morrow's island. Dr. Morrow's island, and it stinks all over the whole South Sea.
This superstitious South Sea gossip. Dr. Moreau is a brilliant man and a great scientist.
Great scientist, huh? Well, if you ask me, he's a black-handed, grave-robbing ghoul. That's what he is.
Oh, what's the use? You're drunk.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, of course, telling us...
I absolutely love their voices, by the way.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a 30s movie. The acting is... This is... Especially the guy playing Moreau. He is amazing. I read that he based his portrayal on a dentist that he knew. So he's got this very... there's no way... Even when you hear his voice, just his voice and the way he talks is fantastic. But he has these expressions he does where... You know, he's trying to maintain himself as, a scientist with noble aims. But then when he says certain things, he gets almost this childish, like, glee to the fact that he's experimenting on living beings. It's crazy. It's such a... The reason to watch it is really for these few actors. They make the whole thing. Because, the makeup work is...
So wait,
it's actually very effective.
What
32.
year is this again?
1932.
Wow,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah. So this is a very specific type of filmmaking. Probably not for most people, but, whatever. Now we know where they're going. They're bringing the animals. If you know the story of the down Dr. Moreau, you already know where this is going, so it won't be any surprise to you. I'll be spoiling that if you don't and never read the book. But they get to the island. So originally Parker was going to ride back on the cargo vessel because he has a fiance back in, I guess, England or America. Oh, well, I think he's American, so I guess it would be back in America. And so he sends a telegram to her, or a wireless transmission, which is, I guess Morse code. Oh, yeah, I think it is Morse code. And so he sends it back, a radio transmission to her saying, I was shipwrecked, but I survived, because everybody else, they've been posting, death notices. And so she thought he was dead. But then she gets this telegram saying, I'm on this ship. I'll be back in a few days. I love you, whatever. But right after that exchange where the captain says, I know what the island is and I know where these animals are going, he starts to harass Dr. Montgomery, who would be the character played by Val Kilmer in the wild adaptation that was done in the 90s.
The secondary, yeah.
Yes, which, what a film. But so he starts to assault him, at which point Parker comes to his aid and kind of slugs the captain. And so the captain, right as... Because basically what they do is they offload all the animals onto another ship that's going to then bring them into... Because it's a giant freighter. So you can't bring that one into where Moreau is. You have to use a smaller ship. And so they offload his cargo, and just as they're leaving, as the ship kind of separates and goes, the captain throws Parker overboard onto that ship. And he's like, well, I only had to take you to another port. I got you here, so screw you. And he throws him off the thing. So he doesn't obviously go back with him. Which the wife, when he doesn't arrive... goes to the consulate, and that starts their investigation, which is towards the end of the movie. But anyway, Parker is now stuck on the island. And so Moreau shows up and says, oh, well, you're welcome to stay with me as long as you like. No problem. We're happy to have you, and we'll figure out a way to get you back.
Nothing weird at all is going to happen, I promise.
No. If any, well, so Parker doesn't have any suspicion about anything because, what's there to be suspicious about? Really, he doesn't know anything yet. Montgomery, you can tell right away, is wondering why Moreau wants to keep him there at all. And in fact, but they have dinner, and basically, Parker observes the fact that Moreau's house is essentially an inverse zoo, where, there's bars everywhere and it's obviously meant to keep people out. But, at this point, he doesn't really question it still because he's taking his host's hospitality in stride. He does note that the workers on the island look a little strange, but again, I think you're supposed to kind of infer that maybe they thought natives looked like this. You know what I mean? A little bit of the old school kind of savage racism going on where why would he question that maybe people in different countries might look like this, even though to our modern eyes, you're like, no, these are not human beings. These are clearly animal people. And the effects are of varying quality, as I said. But I will say, a lot of them are very effective because in black and white, you can't see the seams of blending. So you don't see, a lot of times what gives it away is the skin tone is different. And the way they shoot some of the stuff is really interesting and very surrealistic and kind of impressionistic, like almost the old German kind of films where they were using a lot of light and shadow. There's a couple of sequences where people are running clearly in front of a spotlight, so they get very big in shadow, and it makes them look very terrifying. It's really neat. There's a lot of really, really neat cinematography in the movie. But also some of the effects, they do these very intense close-ups sometimes. And so even though the makeup isn't necessarily great because it's so close up, and because they're kind of staring at the camera, it does become very disconcerting. So it works. It works very well. And they keep them in shadow a lot. So they're, it's not like you really see all the seams on the makeup. And so basically they have dinner and Moreau says, if you do me a favor, just don't leave this room. There's a lot of danger out in the jungle and I wouldn't want you to get hurt. So if you'll do me this favor. And Parker, again, still thinking that there's nothing too out of the ordinary for being stuck on an island. Doesn't really think too much of it and says, okay, that's fine. And so then we get this little explanation that starts to give us an idea of what Moreau's thinking is. So let me play this. And this is an exchange between Montgomery and Moreau.
I had my reasons for keeping you sober. Go to the laboratory. We'll see what's to be done.
You're not going?
I'm taking her to Parker.
Lota to Parker?
Why do you suppose I brought him to the house?
He's seen too much already.
But she's never seen anything like him.
No?
You and I don't count. The only reactions we get from her are fear and terror.
That's understandable.
But how will she respond to Parker where there's no cause for fear? Will she be attracted? Is she capable of being attracted? Has she a woman's emotional impulses? Scarcely hope for a chance like this short of London. Lota, come here. Lota, I've taught you many things.
Yes?
All that you know I've taught you.
Yes.
I'm going to let you learn something for yourself. A man has come from the sea. I will take you to him. Let you talk with him.
Yes?
I'm going to leave you alone with him. And you may talk with him about anything you please, about the world he comes from. But you must say nothing about me. Nothing about the law. Nothing about the House of Pain. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Then come along with me.
So, what we understand is that...
The House of Pain.
Oh, man, the House of Pain, yeah.
What does she look like?
Actually, it's an interesting story with her. There's a picture of her here. I will send this. Because what they did was it's strange. I mean, this is a very of its time type of thing. They credit her as just the Panther Woman, which is bizarre. But what they did was they did a search. They wanted somebody who looked very exotic, and they found this woman who was working, I think, as a dental assistant or something. And I think this is only one of a few movies she ever did. She never really made it, but she has a very distinctive look.
She just looks like a woman.
Well, I mean, they obviously made her up. If you look, they gave her kind of very... So I think what they were looking for is somebody whose features they could exaggerate. I think that was the idea. Because otherwise, I agree. I mean, she doesn't look unusual to me or you, but apparently I think it's the way they made her up. Or maybe the fact that she was willing to wear very little clothing for the time. I don't know.
They're like, oh no, she's a goth. Yeah.
Well, I really think it may have been more of, are you willing to wear this? Because don't forget, for the time, what she's wearing is borderline, yes, it's not much. Yes. Further question?
No, that was all.
Oh, no,
I
thought-
just
okay.
no,
So-
I just found it. I just want to know if she had like features, because I know that in the one that the Val Kilmer one.
Yeah, that's
Was it Fairuza Balk?
Is it Fairuza Balk or was it Helen? No, it wasn't Helen Bonham Carter.
No,
Who was it? Who was it?
I think it was Fairuza
I know. I
Balk.
think you're right.
Because
Yeah,
they did
I'm
her.
mixing
They
it
did
up.
her
Yeah.
up. There was an animal aspect to her.
Yeah. You're right. I'm mixing it up with what do you call it? Helen Bonham Carter was in like the was she one of the Planet of the Apes movies or something? Why am I
Yes,
thinking
she was.
an ape?
She was one of the apes. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was. So that's
She
what
was the
I'm
one that looked like. She was the one that looked like Michael Jackson.
No, God, that movie.
Where they wanted to make her look as human looking as possible while still having like ape features. So like they did the thing with the nose that was very weird, and then they did the big hair and like, yeah, and it was just like the face. And this is the thing. Lately, whenever I see a funky nose, like a really funky nose, I can't help but see kind of like a Michael Jackson
Sure.
aspect to it, because it's the thing that's. It's sadly the thing that stayed with me from this guy, that his nose was this, because when we were playing, I know that when we were playing Baldur's Gate, there's a race called the Gith Yankees. And the first time I laid eyes on them, I was like, why do they look like Lizard Michael Jackson?
Yeah, they really do too.
Because it's like Lizard Michael Jackson, right?
It is.
Yeah, so anyway.
So he takes
Go on.
he takes Lota over to Parker, says, "Oh, she's Polynesian," and then says, "I'll leave you two to talk." And so they're sitting there and they're kind of talking, and Parker doesn't seem to detect anything unusual about her outside of the fact that she seems somewhat unexperienced. But again, I think you're supposed to chalk this up to, well, she's not American, therefore what, or English, so what does she know? Ha ha ha, dumbass foreigners, or something. I don't know what else. I don't know why else he would just be not thrown off by her lack of knowledge about anything, because she's asking questions about like where he comes from. She's speaking in kind of pretty broken English, which that you could throw out to her not being a native English speaker. But some of the questions she asked just would make ordinary people today go, wait a second, are you being abused? Which she clearly is. And then as they're sitting there, he starts hearing screaming. And when he goes to investigate, she says, no, you can't go in there. That's the House of Pain. He's like, well, what does that mean? Which of course she wasn't supposed to say anything. So he breaks into the House of Pain and sees Moreau and Montgomery vivisecting a human, what he thinks is a human being. And apparently even the word vivisection, which was used in the thing, is a violation of what the Hays Code said later. You couldn't even say the word vivisection.
Vivisection? Really?
Yeah. If you look into what this was, it was rated X. This movie was rated X. And trust me, there's nothing in this movie that would be rated anywhere near X today. It wouldn't be rated. It's rated PG now.
Well, I
That should give
mean,
you an example.
even RoboCop was NC-17 at one point.
No, RoboCop was X. They
sorry.
did make it was X in its original version. It went down to 17, and then they changed the blood color to get it to R. When the guy gets splattered, instead of it being blood, it was turned into
green.
Green, right? That's how they got it to R, and a couple other things. And the guy not getting shot for 15 minutes straight. They just cut it down to 1. So anyway, Parker doesn't flies into a furor, and Moreau says, no, it's not what you think. Let me explain. Now this is a long clip. But I actually chopped this down. But this is such a magnificent clip to hear in its entirety that I could not resist getting the whole thing. But this is Moreau explaining to Parker what he's doing. And this is so great that I want to play this in its entirety. So here we go.
I didn't think after my warning you would be idiotic enough to leave the house.
Now I can understand why you and your island stink from one end of the South Seas to the other. What makes your natives such monstrosities? I saw you vivisecting a man.
My dear young fool, you're entirely mistaken.
Well, you can't get away with it in my case, Moreau.
I started with plant life in London 20 years ago. I took an orchid, and upon it I performed a miracle. I stripped 100,000 years of slow evolution from it. And I had no longer an orchid. What orchids will be 100,000 years from now. That's one there.
Yes, but how, Doctor?
A slight change in the single unit of a germplasm. It was as simple as that. That's a common lily. That's a chrysanthemum. That's unfortunately what happened to some asparagus. I went on with this research just as it led me. I left my imagination run fantastically ahead. Why not experiment with the more complex organisms? Man is the present climax of a long process of organic revolution. All animal life is tending toward the human form. I was still in London when I began this phase of my experiments. One day a dog escaped from my laboratory, ran shrieking into the streets. And I left London, Mr. Parker. The newspapers at my heels and aroused England, crying for my blood. I picked up Montgomery and brought him along. He was a medical student facing a prison term for a professional indiscretion. That was 11 long years ago. 11 long years I've worked. With plastic surgery, blood transfusions, gland extracts, with ray bars. With what I have discovered in my own work among the cellular organisms. My work, my discoveries, mine alone. With these, I have wiped out hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. From the lower animals, I have made... See for yourself, Mr. Parker. You're convinced that this thing on the table isn't human?
Its cries are human.
You know what it is, what I began with?
No,
An animal.
an animal. Like those in the cages outside. And those creatures out in the jungle.
Are my creations.
They were made from animals.
Yes.
Was this thing, this poor tortured creature,
What does that matter?
of all things vile?
Mr. Parker, spare me these youthful horrors, please.
And those poor things out there in the jungle. Those animals. They talk.
That was my first great achievement. Articulate speech controlled by the brain. That was an achievement.
Oh, it takes a long time and infinite patience to make them talk. Someday I'll create a woman and it will be easier.
Cool. Oh.
Those are some of my less successful experiments. They supply the power to create others, more successful. But with each experiment I improve upon the last. I get nearer and nearer. Mr. Parker, do you know what it means to feel like God?
Yes, that last line in particular would never be allowed under the Hays Code. That is one of the more sensational lines of the whole thing.
Who does Bela Lugosi play?
This is when he was apparently in heavy debt. So he plays the sayer of the law, the kind of the
Okay,
one
so
who
it's not a
lives
big
out
role.
among them.
Okay.
No, it's a very small role, and you won't recognize him at all. He's completely buried under fur, basically. But he's the one who says, "What is the law?" And they all respond, "Not to spill blood," that type of thing. That's
Yeah.
him. You will hear him in the final clip, which is a wonderful, very short clip. But the guy who plays Moreau
So,
makes the whole movie. That's
is
why
this-
you're watching it.
Is this one of the better versions of The Island of Dr. Moreau that you've seen?
I think so. I love it. I thought this was great. Now that, by the way,
Because it sounds very sort of authentic to the book.
as far as I know, it is. Now, I don't remember the book enough to know what was changed, but my understanding... Now, what I do know is that Wells did not like the movie because he felt like it emphasized the horror over the science. Which, okay, I sort of get that, but it is a horrific tale. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah.
Now, in that clip, at one point you heard the creature moaning.
Yes.
Okay, I dialed that down by so much. The screams and the sound design are intentionally very disturbing. That is so much louder in the movie, but I didn't want to overpower people's speakers. It is, I think I dialed it down by 15 decibels. It is near the top of the volume of the movie. And it is horrible because it goes on and you see this creature writhing on the table. But there's multiple instances where you hear that type of thing. A lot of the sound design is what makes it horrific. But like I said, the guy who plays Moreau is so good. And like you can hear him giggling at one point when he says the thing about a woman. There's all this little stuff where he has these little expressions that are great.
Yeah, that is pretty fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So basically at this point, Parker tries to leave and he encounters all the other creations out in the jungle. They go to kill him, or they seem to be about to kill him, and that's when Moreau shows up. He starts cracking his whip at them and then recites the law where they talk about you won't spill blood, blah, blah, blah. Then he does that explanation, and then he says, because Parker asks him something about Loda, and he says, Loda is the only woman on the island, but he still doesn't tell him what she is. But then he goes and he's talking to Loda, and now he's kind of concerned that, she's stuck with these maniacs. And so they're talking and they're sort of getting a little bit close, but he's like, well, I'm engaged, but, there's obviously something developing. And then she goes to touch his face, and he looks at her hands, and in her hands have claws. At which point,
okay, so there is something. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing that you're aware of, and he sees the claws, and at that point he realizes, and the expressions. I mean, I can't capture them in a clip, but he has these expressions as he's putting it together, where you see it occur to him. He just didn't even think that was possible because she is so close to a human. Yeah. And then when he realizes, he just gets infuriated, and he goes and confronts Moreau, and we get this little exchange right here.
Moreau, you don't deserve to live.
I beg your pardon.
Those creatures out there in the jungle were horrible enough. But to have created a thing as tragic as that girl.
Lota?
Yes, Lota. An animal with a woman's emotions, a woman's heartbreak, a woman's suffering. Oh, it's criminal.
You're an amazingly unscientific young man.
I could have overlooked those others. I could have shown you that much consideration. But not now. Now I'll expose you to the world for what you really are, Moreau.
When are you leaving? I think you'd better sit down and make yourself comfortable. Would you care for a cup of tea?
No, thank you.
Well, we may as well discuss this frankly, now that you know the facts. Lota is my most nearly perfect creation. I was thinking of taking her with me as Exhibit A on a triumphal return to London. I wanted to prove how completely she was a woman. Whether she was capable of loving, mating, and having children. She was afraid of Montgomery and myself. Then you came. Well, she was very much attracted to you. You could see, of course, the possibilities that presented themselves.
So at this point, Parker goes crazy, knocks him out, and says, you're going to get me off this island, or I'm going to basically, I will find a way to destroy all of your work and everything else. And so Moreau says, okay, I'll try to find a way to get you off, or, I'll get a boat and it'll take you off here. And of course he's lying. So meanwhile, as this is going on back in the United States, his fiance has discovered that the ship that was supposed to be carrying him showed up without him on it. She reports it, and so the American consulate says, we cannot have an American stuck on a savage island. We shall go rescue him. Let us send another ship, because an American cannot be stuck someplace where there might be people who look different than him. Go get him. And so they send off a ship with the guy they send him with is such a classic type of, I don't think the clip that I have has him in it, but boy, he is the stereotypical 1930s like ship captain, where he's like, I've seen all kinds of things out on the ocean. I tell you what, like it's a great performance, but I don't think I've got any audio of it, but that's another thing that's delightful. So that's going on. So now we know that she and this captain are going to show up at the island at some point. Back on Moreau's island, he goes to Loda, and he falls into this depression when he's first talking to her, because he looks at her hands, sees the claws, and says, that's it. I thought I had it. I thought I cracked it with her, but her skin is receding. The claws are coming back out. He's like, I can't do it. I might as well just give up, because I was so sure I had it this time. And as he's kind of berating her, he looks over and he notices that she's crying. And then that reverses everything he just said. He says to Montgomery, look, she's crying. she's crying. It's human emotion. I've done it. If I can get her to respond with human emotion, then I'm obviously close. That other problem can be solved. And then he just turns into a maniac. And he's like starts throwing her around. He says, "I'm going to burn out the animal that's left inside you." And it's a horrible scene. But this is what Moreau is. He's a psychopath, or he's an obsessed maniac, whatever. And so the fiance and the stereotypical 30s captain show up. They go into the island and they find Moreau. And when they show up, then Moreau says, maybe I don't need Parker. Maybe I can use the fiance. And so what then you realize is he's going to allow her to be raped by one of the inhabitants of the island. There's a large kind of muscular one called Baran, I think. You'll hear his name later. And so he makes sure that Baran, well, I don't know if he makes sure, but he's pretty sure that a few of them have seen her. So that night, as they go to sleep, because they have to sleep all in separate rooms because of the 30s, so the man and the fiance can't sleep in the same room, which is hysterical. So she has to sleep across the hall. And she's sleeping there, and the Baran, I think his name is, I think it's Baran. Wait, is the name in here someplace? Whatever the creature's name is. Oron, not Baran, Oron. Oron basically rips the bars off the windows and is about to assault her when Parker kicks the door in, and he has a gun, and he kind of shoots and drives him off. And Montgomery then confronts Moreau and says, "That's it. I've looked the other way on a lot of things with you, but you knew that was going to happen, and that's it with me." And he says, "What, are you going to go back to England and go to jail?" And he says, "I'd rather that than be party to this anymore." So basically at that point, he's turned on Moreau, and Moreau's like, "Fine, go." And so as they're getting ready to leave, he pulls Oron aside and says, "I want you to go and find the captain of the boat, and I want you to kill him," which of course breaks the law, which is don't spill blood. And so Oron kills the boat captain, so now they have no way off the island, and brings the body back and throws it in the village where they live. And then we get this exchange about the fact that he's broken the law. And you will hear Bela Lugosi. He's the one who's saying, "What is the law?" That's Bela Lugosi. This is probably half his performance in the entire movie is right here.
What is the law? Not to spare blood. Are we not men? Are we not men? You broke the law.
Law no more.
Law no more. Law no more. You spill blood.
He tell me, spill blood.
What is the law?
Law no more.
Restless tonight.
Right. So now at this point, Moreau has made one of his two fatal miscalculations in the film. And this is probably the most serious one, which is he didn't think through what telling one of them to kill somebody would mean. Because now, of course, they realize that Moreau is also like this person, and that means he can be killed. And also, apparently the law isn't so ironclad, because at one point they pull the clothing off the dead captain, and they look at it, and he's wearing a white jacket, and Moreau is wearing a white jacket. And one says, if he can die, he can die. And if there is no law, then we can kill him because he's tortured us our entire... And so that's the point where now, they're coming for Moreau. And so he keeps trying to whip them, and he's hitting this thing and trying to tell them the law, but they're all screaming there's no more law, and that that he can die. And so Montgomery says to Parker and his fiance, "Let's get the hell out of here, because they're only going to focus on him for so long. This is our chance. Let's go." Because the boat's still there. It's just that the captain's dead. But I think Montgomery seems to know enough to be able to do it or something. Whatever. Maybe it doesn't even matter. But whatever. He's like, "Let's get out of here." And so they're leaving, and Oron sees them and starts to chase them, and Loda sees... Oh, and they get Loda. He says, "We can't leave Loda here." So he's like, "We have to get Loda." So they're taking her, and Loda notices that Oron is following them. So she crawls up into a tree, because she's, Panther, and she jumps on Oron, and they kill each other. Like she chokes him and he does something to her. I mean, there's no marks on her, but he does something and they find her dying. And she says, go back to the sea where you belong. And then she dies. And so the three of them get into the boat, and back on the island, Moreau is kind of running. He's trying to get into his house and lock it up, but they pull all the stuff off and they're basically chasing him now. And they get inside and they chase him into the House of Pain. And there's this great, very short exchange where Moreau says, and you'll hear, he says, this is the House of Pain. And he says it thinking that it will be the final threat to stop them. But what he doesn't think about is the fact that then they realize that they can now use the House of Pain. So you're going to hear this great thing where he says it and then Bela Lugosi's character says it. And listen to the way that the two of them say it and what it means in just this 30 seconds. And so, of course, they drag him into the operating theater. They smash open all of his instruments, and they proceed to tear him to shreds as he screams. I didn't get that part, but you just hear him screaming because now they're cutting him open, and they're basically doing all the things to him that he did to them. And so then the very end of the movie is you see that his lab's on fire. You hear the screaming, and Montgomery, Parker, and his fiancée are in the boat. And Montgomery's rowing away, and he's facing the island, and the two of them are facing him. And Parker goes to turn around, and he says, "Don't look back." And then the movie just comes up with music, and then it ends. And so, and there was no music through the whole movie. I didn't even realize it, but there's no music. It is just the dialogue and the sounds of the animals and what's going on, but there's no soundtrack.
When did soundtracks become popular?
Well, I think they already were. I think this was an intentional decision. I think this was because they wanted to focus so much on the sounds of the creatures and everything, and to make sure the dialogue was very clear, because the dialogue is so good that honestly I'm glad there's nothing over it. I love just listening to the performances. They're so good. And that's it. That's the movie. It's very simple. I mean, you know, it's only 70 minutes or so long.
It's a really good version of The Island of Dr. Moreau. Yeah, it's very, very, it's not overdone. Like I said, it's not even 70. I think it's 70 minutes exactly. It's almost subtle. Well, it's to the point. It dials in the horror of what's being done. And that's where it really shines, is it's Moreau's complete loss of, if he ever had any morals. It's difficult to know that based on the things he says. But he is so far gone in his obsession to create a perfect human that he is just inflicting unspeakable horror on these living beings. And he doesn't even, because they're animals, because that point where he says, well, this is a living creature in pain. He's like, yeah, who cares? He's like, don't you understand what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to create a person. I'm trying to just make everything into people, which I don't even know what that would accomplish. But when he says that thing about all evolution is trending towards the human form, what would that even lead to? And I mean, we see some of it, but you know, the idea of what would the human animal hybrid be? That's his goal, is to make her have a child, or the reverse, to have the fiancé. Well, this is the replicant theory, right? What's the idea? Why do you replicate humans? You want to replicate them to the point where you can breed them with replicants. I guess, yeah. So that there is no difference. So that you can say, I have created life. I am God. What does it feel like to become God? Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. So, like I said, it's for a modern audience, it's going to be tough. It's an old, very old, it's almost 100-year-old movie at this point. It's an old style of filmmaking. It's very dialogue heavy, except for the sound design, which is probably the most disturbing part of it. And some of the visuals are really, really good. But honestly, it is, I think it is more disturbing because there is no decoration of the horror that's being done. And I think that's why it works so well. It is very stripped down, bare metal. This is a, I mean, you can take this with modern knowledge and map this onto the experiments that were done by like the Japanese unit, 541 or whatever it was, and the Nazis. Like, this is what they were doing.
So when you know that and you watch this movie with modern knowledge of the fact that this stuff was done by humans on other humans in real life, this was not a fake thing when it was done. It was even, more horrible. That I think also makes it different. But just as its own movie, as an adaptation, I think it's probably the best one I've ever seen. I mean, I haven't seen a ton, but I think it's a hell of a lot better than that 90s one. The 90s one is good in a trash film kind of way, like oh my God, what did they do here type of thing. But this is, I think, a very good distillation of the story into a movie form. But like I said, the biggest problem with it is its age for a modern audience.
Oh, yeah.
But it's absolutely, if you're okay with when it's from and the fact that, there isn't any gore. There's no, what would be considered a modern horror element. But if you're dialed into the story, yeah, it's great. I mean, I couldn't recommend it highly enough, but I know it's going to be a limited audience. So it's a shame. But it is on Criterion. I don't know if you can watch it anywhere else. I saw some places, but not YouTube. So I don't know if they're really, one of them looked like it might be a Russian site. I don't like to recommend people to non-YouTube stuff if I can avoid it, because you just don't know if there's malware or something. But whether it can be watched anywhere else, I didn't really see. But I know it's on the Criterion channel. Is there anywhere else you can watch it? Let me take a quick look if it's... No, it doesn't look like it, which is a shame. But again, you know what? There's not a lot of people who are going to watch it, so I guess that's why. Which is too bad, because I think it's a good movie. So if you can find it and you're okay with this type of older filmmaking, then I think it's really good. But if you're not, then no amount of clips I've played, we're going to sell you on it. It's just what it is. But I had a great time with it.
It sounds good. But I mean, this is old movies is its own kind of weird genre, and it's like reading old books. True. Listen, nobody sits down to read Beowulf because they think it's going to be a page turner. There's a certain element of historical awareness you have to have going into it. You're not reading something written for you. You're not watching a movie made for you. This was made for somebody with a mindset of the time. You're watching a historical document that's also meant to be entertaining for the people of that time. So it's actually fascinating on many levels, because you're also seeing a interpretation of Dr. Moreau from that time period.
Right. Which was not kind of almost what Stephen King in The Shining, where he didn't like The Shining because it wasn't what he thought the book was. Well, Wells didn't like this. This is the Kubrick of the time with The Shining, where this filmmaker, they played up the horror elements, and they do. I mean, I only captured that one clip of the animals screaming, and I pushed it way down. And there's multiple things where you're hearing that screaming in the background and all this, they did a lot of weird animal kind of sound work and reversing animal sounds. And it is disturbing, along with the fact that some of the makeup, some of it's bad, but some of it is very good. And some of the shadow work, stuff that I can't, capture in an audio form. But like I said, I really liked it. So especially if you like the book, if you remember reading the book and having a fond memory of it, or you're a big fan of it, you probably you get a kick out of it. And again, it's far better than the 90s one in terms of the 90s one is laughable. And honestly, it's got some neat visuals, but it's not a great movie. Honestly,
the Michael York one is kind of okay. I'll put it like that.
I barely remember that one.
It's kind of okay. It's not great. It's kind of okay.
Yeah. Well, this reminded me a lot of The Time Machine.
But it also takes liberties and kind of does its own thing a little bit. You know what I mean? Like
this one feels, for what I remember of the book, and again, because there's so little to it, I think it's probably pretty close. Yeah.
And the book was very dry. I mean, for what it was, like you said.
And that's where I wonder if playing up the horror makes this better, because it's a different aspect. Whereas maybe the book was more scientific, and so it was a little bit staler. This is not. This is purely focused on. This is the horrible things this person is doing. This person is torturing living creatures all the time in a quest for something that, is this justified? Of course it isn't. Yeah. I mean, the Parker's reactions. And I also love the fact that Parker sounds like David Lynch. He sounds like David Lynch the whole movie. Where he's like, Moreau, I won't put up with this. It's just how Lynch talks. But, it's a very good movie if you can watch a movie like this. If you can't, nothing I can say is going to sell it. And the bigger crime to me is that you can't see it very easily, because this is a movie that I think more people should see who would be willing to watch it. I think it's a very good, for its time too. It's so because I attribute movies of this time with being like the sound's generally really good, probably because they didn't put a soundtrack to it. So the dialogue is very crisp and clear. The performances are wonderful. You know, you're only talking maybe 5 people in the whole movie that are actually that you're following. And Moreau, the way that guy plays it, his whole look is it almost does have a Hitler look, but of course this is before World War II. This is way before. So again, I'm mapping modern things onto it, but he does have this kind of chubby Hitler look, which is, and his little, like the things where, and they light him in a really interesting way at times too, where he's got the little smile and they're underlighting him. So he does look demonic. It's really good. But like I said, I'm trying to sell an argument on something that I think a modern audience is going to be hard pressed for. But if you've never seen it and you do like older movies, then you should try to find a way to see it, because I think it is very good. Or if, like I said, you're a fan of the book and you want to see kind of a different, maybe it may be the best one. I don't know. I haven't seen them all, but this may be the best adaptation. So
well, there you go.
And that's it. So I'm sorry I don't have a better way to let everybody watch it, but if you can, I would say it might be worth. If you can find a way to watch it, you might want to watch it. Otherwise, you have Lando's reviews, which are much more easily accessible than the Island of Lost Souls. And that is a reminder of the name, Island of Lost Souls, not Island of Dr. Moreau. Even though I think they could have used it. I don't think there was any, or maybe they couldn't. I don't know how copyright. There was no copyright back then, so they probably just decided it sounded cooler. Which it is kind of a neat name. And on that note, we are done for the weekend. So enjoy whatever you consume. And we'll see you here again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.